My ex-mate, the beta, sent me an invitation to his new mating ceremony with a note. Come see what a real Luna looks like. He wanted to watch me break in front of the whole pack. What he didn't know was that I would not be walking in alone. I would be walking in with the Alpha King holding my hand, and his entire ceremony was about to become my coronation. Chapter 1. The Choice. Sarah didn't leave her small apartment above the library for 3 days. She called in sick, something she'd never done in 5 years of service. Mrs. Chen, the head librarian, had sounded concerned but didn't push. Everyone in the pack knew what had happened. Everyone had seen the invitations. The pitying silence on the other end of the phone told Sarah everything she needed to know about how the pack viewed this fresh humiliation. On the 4th day, her friend Maya kicked down the door. That's it, Maya announced, storming in with a bag of takeout and a bottle of wine. I'm staging an intervention. Maya Reeves was Sarah's opposite in every way. A warrior wolf with a rust-red coat, loud and fierce, who'd befriended Sarah in childhood and never let go. She was one of the few pack members who'd been genuinely angry about the rejection, who'd stopped speaking to Damien entirely afterward. I'm fine, Sarah lied, not looking up from where she sat, curled on her couch, still in the same clothes she'd been wearing for 2 days. You're a terrible liar. Maya sat down the food and crouched in front of her. Sarah, look at me. Sarah looked. Maya's amber eyes were blazing with fury. That absolute bastards, Maya hissed. This isn't just rejection anymore. This is psychological warfare. He's trying to break you. Well, it's working, Sarah whispered. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't go to that ceremony, Maya. I can't stand there and watch him. Watch them. I can't, so don't go. Everyone will know why I'm not there. Everyone will know he broke me so completely I couldn't even show my face. Who cares what they think? I care. Sarah's voice cracked. I care that I've become the pack joke. I care that everywhere I go, people whisper. I care that my own mate looked at me and decided I wasn't even worth keeping. What does that say about me, Maya? What's so fundamentally wrong with me that my own destined mate couldn't stand the thought of being bound to me? Maya grabbed her hands hard. Nothing. There is nothing wrong with you. Damien is a social climbing, appearance-obsessed, power, hungry who threw away his true mate for political advancement. That's his failure, not yours. Then why does it feel like mine? Maya's expression softened. She pulled Sarah into a fierce hug. Because mate rejection isn't just emotional, it's physical, psychological. It rewires your brain to think you're not enough. But you are, Sarah. You're brilliant and kind and stronger than you know. Sarah clung to her friend, wanting desperately to believe her. I've been thinking, Maya said, pulling back. You need to leave this pack. Sarah blinked. What? Transfer. Request asylum somewhere else. You're a certified archivist. Any pack would be lucky to have you. You could go to the Silver Pine pack up north or Riverbend or run away. You mean survive, Maya corrected firmly. There's no shame in removing yourself from a toxic situation. Staying here is killing you, Sarah. I can see it. You're disappearing. Sarah looked around her tiny apartment, the stacks of books, the pressed flowers from her mother's funeral. The life she'd built here, small and safe and suffocating. Maybe Mia was right. Maybe the bravest thing she could do was leave. I'll think about it, she said quietly. Mia seemed satisfied with that. They ate lukewarm Chinese food and drank wine, and for a few hours, Sarah felt almost normal again. But after Mia left, Sarah picked up the invitation again. You are cordially invited. Something hard and cold was forming in her chest. Something that felt like anger. Damien wanted her broken. Wanted her too humiliated to show her face. Wanted to prove that rejecting her had been the right choice. Because look how pathetic she was, how easily destroyed. What if she didn't give him that satisfaction? What if she went to that ceremony and held her head high? What if she showed up looking beautiful and unbothered and made him choke on his cruelty? It was a stupid idea. A dangerous idea. The kind of idea that came from wine and wounded pride rather than common sense. But God, the thought of seeing Damien's face if she walked in radiating confidence instead of shame. Sarah stood up, swaying slightly, and walked to her mirror. She looked terrible, re-dyed pale, her brown hair lank and unwashed. The plain library wolf who'd been so easy to reject. What if I wasn't plain? She whispered to her reflection. The idea took root, growing in the wine-soaked soil of her hurt. She had 2 weeks. 2 weeks to transform herself, not for Damien. He'd made his choice, and she wanted nothing to do with him, but for herself, to prove she could walk into that ceremony and not shatter, to reclaim even a shred of her dignity, and maybe, just maybe, to make him regret his choice for just one moment. The next morning, Sarah woke with determination and a splitting headache. She showered, dressed in clean clothes, and left her apartment for the first time in 4 days. The pack house was bustling with its usual morning chaos. Warriors heading to training, omegas preparing breakfast, children racing through hallways. Sarah kept her head down and made her way to the one place she thought might help her. The pack's boutique was run by Celeste Dupin, an elegant French wolf who'd mated into Crescent Moon 5 years ago. She was one of the few pack members who'd never treated Sarah with pity or contempt, just professional courtesy tinged with a knowing kindness that suggested she'd seen plenty of pack politics and wasn't impressed. The shop was empty when Sarah entered, its windows displaying designer gowns that cost more than Sarah made in 6 months. "Bonjour?" Celeste called from the back. She emerged carrying a garment bag, then stopped when she saw Sarah. Her perfectly groomed eyebrows rose. "Mademoiselle Martinez, this is unexpected." "I need your help," Sarah said before she could lose her courage. I need to look beautiful. Just once. "I have 2 weeks and not much money, but the mating ceremony," Celeste said, understanding. Immediately, she set down the garment bag and studied Sarah with sharp brown eyes. "You're actually going to attend?" "Yes." Sarah lifted her chin. "I'm going to walk in there and hold my head high and show him that he didn't destroy me." Something like approval flickered across Celeste's face. Revenge dressing, a classic choice. She circled Sarah slowly, assessing, "Though I think we can do better than simply beautiful. How do you feel about magnificent?" "I can't afford magnificent." "Who said anything about you paying?" Celeste smiled, sharp and knowing. "Consider it my contribution to the cause. I've never liked that beta of yours. Too much arrogance, not enough substance, and what he did to you. Unforgivable." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Why would you help me?" Celeste's expression softened. "Because I too was once rejected, Sherry, long ago in another pack, by a male who thought he deserved better. I know what it is to feel worthless, and I know what it is to prove them wrong." She took Sarah's hand. "You have beautiful bone structure hidden under all that sadness. Good skin, lovely eyes. We're going to make you into someone who stops traffic." "I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard," Sarah said nervously. "I don't want to look desperate. You won't. You'll look expensive, refined, like you have secrets and don't need anyone's validation." Celeste was already pulling out her phone, typing rapidly. "I'm calling in Yuki for hair and makeup. She's the best, and I have the perfect dress. It just came in from Milan. I haven't even put it out yet. Your coloring will be perfect for it." "Celeste, I can't. You can, and you will. Trust me, Sarah. By the time I'm finished with you, you're going to walk into that ceremony and make every wolf in that room wish they'd treated you better." For the first time in 6 months, Sarah felt something other than pain or numbness. She felt hope. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of transformation. Celeste was ruthless and efficient. She'd taken one look at Sarah's wardrobe and declared it all tragic, then proceeded to build her an entirely new one from pieces that didn't sell well, but looked suspiciously brand new. Elegant separates in jewel tones that made Sarah's skin glow. Tailored pants that made her look taller. A leather jacket that gave her an edge she'd never known she had. Confidence is 80% fit, Celeste explained, pinning a silk blouse. The other 20% is attitude, which we'll work on. Yuki, the pack's premier stylist, transformed Sarah's hair from limp brown to a rich chestnut with subtle caramel highlights that caught the light. She taught Sarah how to style it in loose waves that looked effortless but elegant. "You've been hiding behind this hair," Yuki said, trimming away years of split ends. "Stop hiding." Maya joined the effort with a training regimen that had Sarah cursing her name. "You don't need to be a warrior," Maya explained, making her hold a plank position until her muscles screamed, "but you need to walk in there like you could be." Posture, presence, power. But the most unexpected help came from an unusual source. Sarah was deep in the library's restricted section 1 week before the ceremony, researching something Celeste had mentioned about power dressing and wolf culture. When she sensed someone watching her, she turned to find an older woman studying her from the shadows between the stacks. Elder Moira, the pack's historian and one of its most respected members. Despite being well past her prime fighting years, she rarely left her cottage on the edge of packlands, and Sarah had never spoken to her directly. "Sarah Martinez," Elder Moira said, her voice like old parchment, the rejected mate. Sarah flinched. Yes, Elder. Preparing for the ceremony, are you?" Yes." Moira stepped closer, her cloudy eyes sharp despite her age. "You're planning to attend? Brave, foolish, perhaps both." She tilted her head, studying Sarah with unsettling intensity. "Tell me, child, do you know why the mate bond exists?" Sarah blinked, surprised by the question. The moon goddess creates it to ensure genetic compatibility and pack strength. "That's what they teach children," Moira said dismissively. "The truth is more complex. The mate bond isn't just about breeding. It's about balance. About creating pairs strong enough to lead, wise enough to protect, powerful enough to change the very structure of our world." She moved closer, her gaze pinning Sarah in place. When a wolf rejects their true mate, they don't just sever a bond. They reject their own destiny, their own potential. "Damien seems fine," Sarah said bitterly. "Better than fine. He's about to mate the alpha's daughter." "Is he?" Moira's smile was thin and knowing. "Or is he about to make the greatest mistakes of his life?" "Tell me, Sarah, have you noticed anything unusual in the past 6 months?" Sarah frowned. "Like what?" "Dreams, visions, an unusual pull toward certain places or certain knowledge, a growing strength where there was once only weakness." Sarah's heart skipped. She had been having dreams, vivid ones of running through forests she'd never seen, of ancient temples and silver moonlight. She'd dismissed them as stress. But now, what are you saying? Moira reached into her robes and pulled out an old leather journal. "Your mother worked for me. Did you know that?" Before she got sick, she was researching bloodlines. Old ones, hidden ones, lines that went dormant for generations, waiting for the right catalyst to awaken them. "My mother was a seamstress," Sarah whispered. "Your mother was many things, including very careful about what she told you." Moira pressed the journal into Sarah's hands. "She made me promise to give you this if you ever needed it. I think that time has come." Sarah opened the journal with shaking hands. The first page was her mother's handwriting for Sarah when she's ready to know the truth. "What truth?" Sarah demanded, looking up. But Elder Moira was already walking away, her voice floating back through the stacks. "That sometimes rejection is the moon goddess's way of freeing you for something greater. Read the journal, child. And when you attend that ceremony, remember, you are not there to beg for scraps from a male who couldn't recognize a treasure when it was handed to him. You're there to reclaim your power." Then she was gone, leaving Sarah alone with her mother's secrets. Sarah stayed in the library until dawn reading. By the time the sun rose, her hands were shaking, and her world had shifted on its axis once more. Her mother hadn't been a simple seamstress. She'd been a researcher, a historian, a keeper of truths that the modern packs had forgotten. And she'd discovered something about Sarah's bloodline, something that explained why Sarah's wolf was small and plain. It was dormant, waiting for a rejection to trigger its awakening. According to her mother's research, Sarah was descended from an ancient line, Ada, the Silver Scribes, wolves who'd served as advisors and record keepers to the first Alpha King. They'd been powerful not through physical strength, but through knowledge, strategy, and an unusual gift. They could sense truth from lies, could read wolves like books, could see the threads that connected past to future. But the bloodline had been diluted over centuries, weakened, almost forgotten. Most Silver Scribe descendants lived entire lives without their gifts ever manifesting, unless something catastrophic triggered the awakening. Something like mate rejection. The pain breaks open what was locked away, her mother had written. The bond severing creates a void that older magic can fill. My darling daughter, if you're reading this, it means you've suffered. I'm sorry, but know this. What was meant to destroy you may actually be the key to your true power. Sarah closed the journal, her mind reeling. She'd been having dreams, growing stronger, finding herself able to read people better than before. To sense dishonesty like a physical taste. She thought it was just survival instincts sharpening. But what if it was more? What if Damon's rejection hadn't broken her? It had freed something inside her that had been sleeping. Sarah stood up, walked to the library's old mirror, and studied her reflection. Same face, same brown eyes. But there was something different now. Something in the way she held herself. In the set of her jaw, she looked like someone who knew a secret. The ceremony was in 3 days. Sarah smiled at her reflection, sharp and knowing, and felt something ancient stir in her blood. Damien wanted her at his ceremony to complete her humiliation. He was going to get so much more than he bargained for. Chapter 2. The Stranger. The day before the ceremonies, Sarah woke to chaos. The entire pack house was in an uproar. Warriors running through hallways, Omegas frantically cleaning already spotless rooms. The Beta himself barking orders with unusual tension in his voice. Sarah could hear it from her apartment above the library. The building anxiety that made every wolf's instincts prickle. She descended the stairs carefully, wearing one of her new outfits, tailored black pants, and a forest green silk blouse that Celeste had insisted brought out the gold in her eyes. Her hair fell in the loose waves Yuki had taught her to create, and she'd applied minimal makeup with a steadier hand than she'd thought possible. Maya intercepted her at the bottom of the stairs, eyes wide. Have you heard? Maya grabbed her arm, practically vibrating with nervous energy. Heard what? Alpha King Alexander is coming here today. Maya's voice dropped to an odd whisper. The Alpha King, Sarah. He's never visited our pack ever, and suddenly he's arriving this afternoon with his personal guard. Sarah's stomach dropped. Alpha King Alexander Vulov ruled the entire Western Territory. M's over 30 packs answered to him. He was a legend, a warrior king who'd taken power at 25 and spent the last decade consolidating wolf territory and negotiating with human governments. Rumors painted him as ruthless, powerful, and utterly merciless to those who crossed him. Why? Sarah asked. Why would he come here? Nobody knows. Alpha Graham is losing his mind. Damien's been screaming at people all morning. They're saying the king didn't even give proper notice. Just sent word last night that he'd be arriving today for the ceremony tomorrow. Maya's expression turned calculating. And here's the interesting part. Apparently, he specifically requested accommodations for himself and asked for access to our archives. The archives? Sarah's heart skipped. Why would the Alpha King need our library? No idea. But guess who's probably going to have to deal with him? Maya grinned. You're our head archivist, Sarah. You might actually get to meet him. The thought was terrifying and oddly thrilling. In all her years of imagining escape from this pack, she'd never considered that someone of that status might actually notice her existence. I need to prepare the restricted section, Sarah said, already mentally cataloging what might interest a visiting Alpha King. If he wants archives, he's probably looking for territory records or bloodline documentation. We have some of the oldest records in the Western Territory. Or, Maya said slowly, he's coming for the ceremony. Maybe he's friends with Damien or courting an alliance with our pack. That made more sense. Alpha Graham had been positioning Crescent Moon Pack for greater political influence for years. Damien's mating to Issa was part of that strategy, consolidating internal power. An alliance with the Alpha King himself would catapult them into the highest ranks of pack hierarchy. Of course, someone like Alexander Vulov wouldn't be here for the archives. He was here for politics. Sarah felt foolish for the flutter of hope she'd felt. Why would she matter to someone like that? I should still prepare, she said quietly. Just in case, Maisa squeezed her shoulder. Hey, tomorrow, remember. Tomorrow is your day. Don't let all this distract you from the plan. The plan? Walk into that ceremony looking powerful and unbothered. Prove to herself and everyone else that Damien hadn't destroyed her. Reclaim her dignity. It suddenly seemed very small compared to the arrival of the Alpha King. Sarah spent the morning in the archives organizing and cleaning obsessively. The restricted section held their most valuable records. Ancient treaties, bloodline registries going back 8 generations, historical accounts of territory wars, and pack formations. Her mother had spent years cataloging this section. Now Sarah maintained it, one of the few pack members trusted with access. She was high on a ladder, dusting a shelf of leather-bound journals. When she felt it, a presence powerful, predatory. Every instinct in her body screamed alpha. She turned too quickly, lost her balance, and would have fallen if strong hands hadn't caught her waist, steadying her with effortless strength. Sarah looked down into eyes like molten silver. The man holding her was tall. She was on the 5th rung of the ladder, and they were nearly eye level, broad-shouldered with sharp cheekbones and dark hair that fell just past his collar. He wore all black, expensive black, the kind of tailored perfection that spoke of serious money. But it was his eyes that held her captive, silver, luminous, ancient, and knowing, and fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Careful," he said, his voice a deep rumble with a hint of an accent she couldn't place. "Russian, maybe. That would be an unfortunate way to meet." Sarah realized she was still in his hands, his grip warm through the silk of her blouse. She scrambled down the ladder quickly, and he stepped back, giving her space but not taking his eyes off her. "I'm sorry," she said, trying to calm her racing heart. "The archives are closed for cleaning. If you need something, you'll have to come back. I'm exactly where I need to be." He tilted his head, studying her with unnerving focus. "You're the archivist." It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded slowly, deeply aware that this man was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with physical threat. Power radiated from him like heat. Her wolf, dormant for so long, stirred with something that felt like recognition. "I am Sarah Martinez. And you are?" His mouth curved in a smile that didn't reach those strange silver eyes. "Interested in your collection? I was told Crescent Moon Pack has records dating back to the first council." "Is that true?" "Yes. We have documentation from 1847, when the Western Territory was first formally organized." Sarah found her professional footing. Grateful for familiar ground. "Are you a researcher?" "You'll need Alpha Graham's permission to access the restricted materials." "Will I?" The amusement in his voice suggested he didn't need permission from anyone. "What if I told you I have particular interest in bloodline records, specifically dormant lines, families that carried power but lost it over generations?" Sarah's breath caught. That was exactly what her mother had been researching, exactly what she'd spent all night reading about in her mother's journal. "That's unusually specific," she managed. "I have unusual interests." He moved closer, and Sarah fought the urge to step back. He smelled like winter pine, and something wilder, like mountain storms. Tell me, Miss Martinez, do you believe in fate? In destinies written long before we're born? I don't know, she said honestly. I used to believe in mate bonds. That doubt to be a mistake. Something flickered in those silver eyes. Did it? Or did it simply reveal that what you thought was your destiny was actually just an obstacle to overcome? He reached past her, pulling a specific journal from the shelf with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was looking for. This one? May I? Sarah looked at the journal he'd selected. Her heart stopped. It was her mother's research journal. The one Elder Moira had given her just days ago. She brought it here this morning, planning to copy some sections, and left it on the research desk. How did you know that was there? She whispered. Because I know what I'm looking for. He opened the journal, scanning pages with rapid efficiency. Interesting. Your mother was quite thorough in her research. She'd discovered the silver scribe line still had living descendants. One in particular, his eyes lifted to hers, pinning her in place. You. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Who are you? Someone who pays attention to bloodlines. Someone who notices when ancient magic starts waking up. He closed the journal and set it down carefully. Tell me, how long have you been experiencing the changes, the dreams, the ability to sense truth from lies? I don't know what you're talking about. But her voice shook, giving her away. Yes, you do. He stepped closer, and this time Sarah did back up, her spine hitting the bookshelf. Your awakening, Sarah Martinez. The rejection triggered something your mother probably hoped would stay dormant. Safer that way. Quieter. But the moon goddess rarely cares about safe or quiet. You need to leave, Sarah said, fear sharp in her throat. I don't know who you are or what you want, but what I want, he interrupted softly, is to make you an offer. I'm not interested. You haven't heard it yet. His smile was sharp now, predatory. Tomorrow you're planning to attend a ceremony where your rejected mate binds himself to another. You're planning to walk in there with your head high, looking beautiful, proving you're not broken. Very brave, very stupid, Sarah flinched. That's none of your business. It becomes my business when I have use for you. He pulled something from his pocket. A heavy cream envelope with a wax seal she didn't recognize. Here's what I'm offering. Don't go to that ceremony as Sarah Martinez, the rejected Omega who's trying to prove she's not pathetic. Go as my companion, my guest, and watch what happens when your former mate realizes exactly what he threw away. Sarah stared at the envelope. Why would you do that? You don't even know me, don't I? Those silver eyes glittered. I know you're a silver scribe awakening into her power. I know you're brilliant enough to run these archives at 23. I know you're brave enough to face public humiliation rather than hide. And I know that what you need isn't just a pretty dress and good posture. You need someone who makes every wolf in that room understand that rejecting you was the worst mistake of your beta's miserable life. And you're that someone. I'm Alpha King Alexander Vulov. He said it casually, like commenting on the weather. And yes, I'm exactly that someone. The world tilted. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the Western Territory, was standing in her archives, offering to what be her date to her rejected maid's wedding. This is insane, Sarah breathed. Why would you? What could you possibly gain from? Maybe I don't like males who reject true mates for political advancement, Alexander said, his voice going cold. Maybe I think the mate bond is sacred and watching wolves treat it like a disposable contract disgusts me. Or maybe his expression shifted into something more calculated. I need access to your archives, and an alliance with a silver scribe would be mutually beneficial. There it was, the real reason. He wanted something from her. I'm not even fully awakened, Sarah said. I barely understand what's happening to me. That's why you need a teacher. Someone who knows the old ways, the old magic. He held out the envelope again. This contains a formal invitation to attend the ceremony as my honored guest. Accept it, and I'll help you understand what you're becoming. Refuse it, and you'll walk in there alone, and everyone will see exactly what you're trying so hard to hide, that you're terrified and heartbroken, and desperately hoping this doesn't destroy you." His words cut because they were true. For all her preparation, for all of Celeste's beautiful clothes and Yuki's styling, Sarah was terrified of tomorrow. "What do you really want from me?" she asked quietly. Alexander's smile turned genuine for the first time. Something's warm and almost kind entering those cold silver eyes. "The truth? I want to see what you'll become when you stop letting other people define your worth. I want to see what happens when a silver scribe remembers her power. And yes, I want access to knowledge you can help me find. But more than any of that," he leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper that sent shivers down her spine, "I want to see the look on Damien Cross's face when you walk in tomorrow on the arm of an alpha king." Sarah's heart was hammering. This was crazy. Reckless, dangerous in ways she couldn't even calculate. But God, the thought of walking into that ceremony, not as the pathetic rejected mate, but as the Alpha King's companion. "He rejected me," she whispered publicly. "Crew. He spent 6 months making sure everyone knows how worthless I am. Then let's make sure everyone knows how catastrophically wrong he was." Alexander pressed the envelope into her hands. "Your choice, Sarah. Walk in alone tomorrow and hope your new clothes and brave face are enough. Or walk in with me, and let me show you what it means to have real power standing at your back." Sarah looked down at the envelope. Heavy, expensive, official. The kind of invitation that changed everything. Elder Moira's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes rejection is the moon goddess's way of freeing you for something greater. Maybe this was that something greater. Or maybe she was making a deal with someone far more dangerous than Damien could ever be. Only one way to find out. "Okay." Saida heard herself say, "I'll accept your invitation." Alexander's smile was victorious and sharp. "Excellent. My people will coordinate with you on details. Wear something that makes you feel powerful. You'll be representing not just yourself tomorrow, but my court." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Sarah, that beta of yours is going to regret ever letting you go. I'll make sure of it." Then he was gone, moving through the stacks with patternatural silence, leaving Sarah alone with a heavy envelope and a decision that would change everything. She opened the invitation with shaking hands. "The Alpha King requests the honor of your presence as his honored companion at the mating ceremony of Beta Damien Cross and Issa Thorne." Sarah started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. Tomorrow was supposed to be her quiet reclamation of dignity. Instead, she was about to walk into that ceremony with the most powerful wolf in the territory. Damien wanted to humiliate her one final time. He had no idea what was coming. Chapter 3. Transformation. Sarah didn't tell anyone about Alexander immediately. She spent the rest of the afternoon in a daze, the Alpha King's invitation burning like a brand in her pocket. She shelled books mechanically, her mind replaying every moment of their encounter. Those silver eyes, that predatory grace, the casual way he'd said, "I'm Alpha King Alexander Volkov," like it was nothing. By the time she locked up the archives at sunset, she'd almost convinced herself it had been a hallucination, stress-induced fantasy, her mind breaking under the pressure of tomorrow's ceremony. Then she returned to her apartment and found a garment bag hanging on her door. Heavy black fabric designer label with a note in sharp, elegant handwriting. "Wear this. My car will collect you at 6 p.m. tomorrow." Sarah brought the bag inside with trembling hands and unzipped it slowly. The dress that emerged made her gasp. It was midnight blue silk that seemed to shift to deep purple in certain light, with a fitted bodice and a flowing skirt that would fall to her ankles. The neckline was elegant but modest, the back dipping low enough to be sophisticated without being scandalous. Delicate silver embroidery traced the edges, patterns that looked almost like ancient runes. It was the most beautiful thing Sarah had ever seen, and it must have cost more than she made in a year. She was still staring at it when Maya burst through her door without knocking. Okay, so, I heard the craziest rumor. Maya stopped dead, her eyes going wide. Holy, is that what you're wearing tomorrow? Maya, because if so, Celeste is going to murder you for not using her dress, but also, holy Sarah, that's gorgeous. Where did you? Maya's eyes narrowed. That's not from Celeste's boutique. That's custom. That's expensive custom. Sarah Martinez. What have you been doing? Sarah closed the door and locked it. You have to promise not to freak out. I'm already freaking out. You have a dress that costs more than my motorcycle, and you're being weird. What's going on? I met someone today. Someone who offered to accompany me to the ceremony. Maya's expression cycled through confusion, concern, and then sudden hope. Wait, like a date? Sarah, that's perfect. Who is he? Do I know him? Please tell me he's hot and makes good money and will make Damien choke on his own tongue. He's the Alpha King. Silence. Maya blinked once, twice. I'm sorry. What? Alpha King Alexander. He came to the archives today. We talked. He offered to take me to the ceremony as his companion. The words sounded insane even as Sarah said them. Maya sat down heavily on the couch. You're joking. I'm not the Alpha King. Alexander Vulov, ruler of the Western Territory, the most powerful wolf alive, asked you to be his date. When you put it like that, it sounds even crazier. Because it is crazy. Maya stood up, pacing. Sarah, this doesn't make sense. Why would he? What does he want? This has to be some kind of trick, or he wants access to the archives. And he says, I'm a silver scribe. That my bloodline has power and I'm awakening. Sarah pulled out her mother's journal, showing Maya. My mother was researching it before she died. The rejection triggered something dormant in my blood. Maya took the journal with shaking hands, scanning the pages. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock to something like awe. This is real. You're actually descended from the silver scribes, apparently. Sarah, do you know what this means? The silver scribes were legendary. They advised the first Alpha King. They could read truth, sense lies, see connections others missed. If you're really one of them, then the Alpha King wants to use me for whatever knowledge I can provide. Sarah sat down heavily. I'm not stupid, Maya. I know this isn't some fairy tale where a powerful man falls for the rejected Omega. He sees something useful in me, that's all. But he's still offering to take you tomorrow to publicly claim you as his companion. Sarah, do you understand what that means? You'll walk in there with the Alpha King. Damien will lose his mind. The entire pack will lose their minds. I know. And you're actually going to do it? Sarah looked at the dress, at the journal, at her reflection in the window, where a girl she barely recognized looked back at her. Stronger, sharper, awake. Yes, she said quietly. I'm going to do it. Maya stared at her for a long moment, then broke into a wild grin. Yes, Sarah. This is going to be amazing. Damien is going to himself. Isa is going to combust. Alpha Graham is going to have a stroke. She grabbed Sarah's shoulders. But you need to be careful. The Alpha King is dangerous. Everyone knows that. He doesn't do anything without 3 layers of strategy. Whatever he wants from you, it's more than just archive access. I know, Sarah said again. But Maya, I don't care anymore. I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of being invisible. Tomorrow, I'm going to walk into that ceremony and I'm going to be seen. And if using the Alpha King's interest gets me that, then I'll deal with the consequences later. Maya studied her friend's face, then nodded slowly. Okay then. Let's make sure you're ready. We have 1 night to turn you from Library Wolf to Alpha King's companion. Come on, we're going to Celeste's. Celeste's boutique was closed, but she answered Maya's frantic knocking, wearing a silk robe and an expression of annoyed confusion that morphed into sharp interest when she saw the garment bag. Murd, she breathed, examining the dress with a professional eye. This is Victor Constantine's work. Custom piece. He doesn't take clients anymore, only creates for royalty. and her eyes widened. Who gave you this? Alpha King Alexander? Sarah said, watching Celeste's face carefully. The French woman went very still. Then she sat down, thus dressed with reverent care, and turned to Sarah with an expression that was equal parts impressed and concerned. You need to tell me everything. Now they sat in Celeste's private studio, while Sarah recounted the day's events. Celeste listened without interrupting, her sharp mind clearly calculating angles and implications. He's using you, Celeste said finally, but not in the way you think. What do you mean? Alexander Volkov is many things, but careless isn't one of them. If he's making a public display of bringing you to this ceremony, it's because he wants to send a message. The question is to whom? Celeste stood pacing. It could be a message to your alpha about treating true mates with respect. It could be a power play to remind everyone of his authority. Or she paused, studying Sarah. It could be that he genuinely finds you interesting and wants to see what you'll become. The silver scribe thing, Maya added. He mentioned that specifically. Celeste nodded slowly. That would make sense. The Alpha King has been consolidating power, but he's also been searching for something. Rumor in high circles says he's looking for old knowledge, old magic, things that were lost when the Pax modernized. She looked at Sarah. If you truly are a silver scribe awakening, you could be exactly what he needs. But I don't know anything, Sarah protested. I can barely sense when people are lying. Sometimes I have weird dreams. That's not exactly legendary power. Not yet, Celeste agreed. But with proper training, with someone to teach you what you're capable of, Sherry, you could be formidable. She picked up the dress again, and tomorrow you're going to look the part. This dress is designed to make a statement. See these? She traced the silver embroidery. These aren't just decorative. These are protection runes, old ones. He's claiming you, not just socially, but magically. Sarah's stomach flipped. That sounds serious. It is serious, very serious. Celeste met her eyes, which means you need to decide right now if you're truly ready for this. Once you walk into that ceremony on his arm, you're not just the rejected mate making a statement. You're the Alpha King's chosen companion. That puts you in the spotlight in ways you can't imagine. Are you prepared for that? Sarah thought about Damien, about 6 months of humiliation, about the invitation delivered specifically to make sure she witnessed her own replacement, about every pitying look and cruel whisper. Yes, she said firmly. I'm ready. Celeste smiled. Ben, then let's make sure you're perfect. The next 18 hours were a blur of preparation. Celeste called in Yuki, who arrived with a case full of supplies and a gleam in her eye that suggested she lived for this kind of challenge. Alpha King's companion. Yuki breathed, already studying Sarah's face. This is going to be my masterpiece. They started with skin care treatments that made Sarah's skin glow. Then Yuki worked on makeup, creating something that enhanced rather than masked. Subtle but striking, natural but powerful. You're not trying to be beautiful, Yuki explained, blending shadows. You're acknowledging that you always were. Confidence is the prettiest thing a woman can wear. The hair took longest. Yuki debated between elegant updos and flowing styles before finally creating something in between, soft waves pulled back from Sarah's face with delicate silver pins. The rest cascading down her back. Like a princess, Maya said, watching from the corner. Like actual royalty. She's attending with royalty, Celeste corrected. She needs to match his status. By the time they finished, it was 5:30 p.m. Half an hour until the Alpha King's car arrived. Sarah stood in front of Celeste's full-length mirror, and for the first time in her life, she didn't recognize herself. The girl? No. The woman staring back at her looked powerful, elegant. The midnight blue dress hugged her curves perfectly, the silver runes catching the light. Her makeup made her brown eyes look enormous and luminous. Her lips full and naturally pink, the soft waves of her hair framed her face like a dark halo. She looked like someone who belonged on an Alpha King's arm. Sarah, Maya whispered. You're stunning. Sarah touched her reflection, half expecting it to shatter. I don't feel like me. Good, Celeste said firmly. Tonight, you're not the old Sarah Martinez. You're not the rejected Omega or the invisible librarian. Tonight, you're whoever you decide to be, so decide to be powerful. A knock at the boutique door made them all jump. That'll be his driver, Celeste said. Ready? Sarah took a deep breath, thought about Damien, about Ella, about walking into that ceremony alone versus walking in with the Alpha King. Ready, she said. They walked to the door together. Celeste opened it to reveal a man in an immaculate black suit, clearly security with the bearing of a trained warrior. Behind him, a sleek black car waited, engine purring. Miss Martinez, the man said with a slight bow, the Alpha King is waiting. Maya grabbed Sarah's hand, squeezing tight. You've got this, she whispered. Go make him regret everything. Sarah squeezed back, then straightened her spine and walked toward the car. The driver opened the back door, and Sarah slid inside. Alexander Vulov sat in the far seat, dressed in a midnight black suit that probably cost more than Sarah's entire apartment. His silver eyes tracked her movement as she settled into the plush leather, and something like approval flickered across his face. Miss Martinez, he said, his voice, that deep rumble that made her skin prickle. You look exceptional. Thank you for the dress, Sarah said, proud that her voice came out steady. It's beautiful. It suits you. He leaned forward slightly, studying her. Are you ready for this? Once we arrive together, there's no taking it back. Every wolf at that ceremony will see you as mine, my companion, my chosen guest. That carries weight implications. Are you prepared to handle that? Sarah met those silver eyes and thought about everything that had led to this moment, the rejection, the humiliation, the journal full of her mother's secrets, the awakening power in her blood. I'm prepared, she said. Alexander smiled, sharp and satisfied. Then let's go. Show your former mate the greatest mistake of his miserable life. The car pulled away from the boutique, heading toward the ceremony venue, toward Damien, toward everything that would change. Sarah's heart hammered, but her hands were steady. Tonight, she would walk into that ceremony not as the rejected mate, begging for scraps of dignity. Tonight, she would walk in as the Alpha King's chosen companion, and Damon Cross would finally understand what he'd thrown away. Chapter 4. The Ceremony. The venue was the Pax Grand Hall, a massive structure of wood and stone that had hosted ceremonies for 3 generations. Tonight, it had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Thousands of white lights draped from the vaulted ceiling. Flowers, white roses, and silver lilies covered every surface. The scent of them was overwhelming, cloying, making Sarah's sensitive wolf nose itch. As their car pulled up to the entrance, Sarah could see wolves already gathering. The ceremony wouldn't start for another 20 minutes. But pack members were arriving early, dressed in their finest, eager to witness the beta's mating to the alpha's daughter. Breathe, Alexander said quietly beside her. You look like you're about to face an execution. I feel like I am, Sarah admitted. Her hands were trembling in her lap. He reached over and covered her hand with his warm, solid, steadying. Listen to me. In a few moments, every wolf in there is going to turn and stare. They're going to whisper. Some will be shocked. Some will be jealous. Some will be confused. Let them stare. Let them whisper. You're not here for their approval. Then why am I here? Because you're done being invisible. His silver eyes held hers. Because you deserve to be seen. And because that beta needs to understand that rejecting his true mate was the worst decision he'll ever make. He squeezed her hand once, then released it. Head high, shoulders back. You're walking in with an Alpha King. Act like you belong there. The car door opened. The driver extended his hand to help Sarah out. This was it. No going back. Sarah took his hand and stepped out of the car. The effect was immediate. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. A ripple of shock spread through the gathered wolves like a physical wave. Sarah heard gasps, whispers, someone's phone clattering to the ground. Then Alexander emerged from the car behind her. The whispers became a roar. "Is that the Alpha King? What is he doing here? Is that Sarah Martinez? It can't be. She's with him." Alexander moved to stand beside her, and the crowd instinctively parted. He offered his arm with old-world courtesy, his expression calm and utterly unbothered by the chaos they'd created. "Shall we?" he murmured. Sarah slipped her hand through his arm, feeling the solid strength of him, and let him guide her toward the entrance. They walked through the crowd, like royalty through common subjects. Wolves pressed back, creating a clear path, their eyes wide with shock and speculation. Sarah kept her chin up, her expression serene, even as her heart threatened to beat out of her chest. She caught sight of familiar faces in the crowd. Pack members she'd known for years, looking at her like they'd never seen her before. Some with awe, some with envy, some with confusion that bordered on disbelief. There was Elder Moira, standing near the entrance, a knowing smile on her ancient face. There was Maya, who'd managed to get a spot near the front, giving Sarah a covert thumbs up with tears in her eyes. There was Celeste, looking satisfied and proud. And there, frozen halfway up the entrance steps, was Damien Cross. He stood with Issa on his arm. She was stunning in a white gown that probably cost as much as Sarah's car had. Her silver blonde hair arranged in elaborate curls. But Sarah barely registered Isla because she was watching Damien's face. He'd gone completely white. His mouth hung open slightly, his blue eyes wide with shock. He was staring at Sarah like he'd seen a ghost. No, worse than that. Like he was seeing something impossible, something that violated the natural order of his universe. Issa followed his gaze, her expression shifting from confused to furious in the span of a heartbeat. "Damien," she hissed loud enough for Sarah to hear. "Who is that with?" "Sarah." Damien breathed. Just her name, barely audible, filled with something that might have been shock or horror or regret. Alexander and Sarah reached the steps. Damien and Isla were blocking their path. For a moment, no one moved. Then Alexander raised one elegant eyebrow. "Beta Cross, are you planning to greet your guests? Or should we assume the ceremony has been canceled?" The words were polite. The tone was pure ice. Damon jerked like he'd been slapped. "Alpha King," he managed, his voice rough. We didn't know you were coming. We would have prepared appropriate. I require no special preparation." Alexander's voice carried easily over the shocked murmurs of the crowd. "I'm simply here to witness a mating ceremony, though I confess. I'm curious about the tradition of inviting one's rejected mate to such an event. Is that common in your pack, or is public humiliation a personal hobby of yours?" The crowd went utterly silent. Issa made a strangled sound. Damien looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. That wasn't. Damon's eyes darted between Alexander and Sarah, clearly trying to calculate his way out of this. "Sarah is a valued pack member. We invited everyone." "How generous," Alexander said, his tone suggesting it was anything but. "And yet here she is as my guest. Which means, Beta Cross, that you'd best find someone else to humiliate for entertainment. This one is under my protection now." He paused, letting that sink in. "Do we have an understanding?" It wasn't a question. It was a threat. Wrapped in silk, Damien swallowed hard. "Yes, Alpha King, of course, Sarah is. She's welcome here." "How magnanimous of you to welcome your rejected mate to your mating ceremony." Alexander's smile was all teeth. "Now, if you'll excuse us, I believe you have a ceremony to prepare for, and Miss Martinez and I have a show to watch." He guided Sarah past them, up the steps, and through the massive doors into the grand hall. The moment they were inside, Sarah's knees nearly buckled. Alexander steadied her with a hand at her elbow, his voice low and amused. "You're doing beautifully. Just a bit longer." That was Sarah couldn't find words necessary. Alexander finished. "He needed to understand that you're not his to torment anymore, that you have protection, that touching you means answering to me." He glanced down at her, something almost gentle in his expression. "How do you feel?" Sarah thought about it, about Damon's face, about the shock and confusion. And maybe, just maybe, a flicker of regret in his eyes. "Powerful," she whispered. Alexander's smile turned genuine. "Good. Hold on to that feeling." The interior of the grand hall was even more elaborate than outside. Every surface draped in white silk silver candelabras, burning with what had to be hundreds of candles. The seating was arranged in rows facing a raised platform where the ceremony would take place, with the front row reserved for pack leadership. Alpha Graham stood near the platform with his Luna, both of them staring at Alexander with expressions of barely controlled panic. The Alpha was a large man going soft around the middle, his dark hair streaked with gray. His Luna, Isa's mother, looked like an older version of her daughter. Beautiful, cold, calculating. "Alpha King," Graham said, hurrying over. "This is. We had no idea you would be honoring us with your presence. If we'd known, we would have prepared. As I told your beta, I require no special accommodation." Alexander's tone was pleasant but final. "I trust you have no objection to my presence." "Of course not. You're always welcome in Crescent Moon territory." Graham's eyes darted to Sarah, clearly dying to ask, but not quite daring. "Will you be sitting with the leadership?" "I'll sit wherever Miss Martinez is most comfortable." Alexander looked at Sarah. "Do you have a preference?" Every eye in the rapidly filling hall was on them. Sarah could practically feel the weight of their stares, their shock, their desperate need to understand what was happening. The old Sarah would have asked for somewhere in the back. Somewhere invisible. But the woman in the midnight blue dress standing beside an Alpha King wasn't that Sarah anymore. "Front row," she said clearly. "I'd like to see everything." Alexander's smile was proud. "Front row it is." Alpha Graham looked like he might faint, but managed a weak nod. "Of course, please." This way, he led them to the front row, displacing several high-ranking pack members who scrambled out of the way. Sarah found herself seated in the center, directly facing the ceremony platform, with Alexander beside her. The hall continued to fill. Sarah felt hundreds of eyes on her back, heard the whispers rising like a tide. "Is that really Sarah Martinez with the Alpha King? How did she? She looks completely different. Poor Damien must be dying. Did you see Isla's face?" Maya slipped into a seat 2 rows back, catching Sarah's eye with a grin that was pure joy and vindication. Celeste sat near the aisle, looking satisfied. Elder Moira found a seat in the corner, watching everything with those knowing ancient eyes. The hall gradually quieted as the ceremony's start time approached. Sarah's heart hammered. In moments, she'd have to watch Damon bind himself to Isla, watch him give another woman the bond that should have been hers. She felt Alexander's hand cover hers again, warm and steady. "Breathe," he murmured. "Remember, you're not here as his rejected mate, watching him move on. You're here as my companion, watching a male realize he destroyed his own future." Before Sarah could respond, music began. Ancient wolf ceremony music, haunting and beautiful. The ceremony was beginning. Damon entered first. Walking down the center aisle, he wore traditional ceremonial clothes, dark pants, white shirt, a vest embroidered with his pack symbols. He should have looked proud, excited, eager for his new mate. Instead, he looked sick. His eyes kept darting to Sarah. She met his gaze steadily, her expression serene, her hand still in Alexander's, watched him flinch, watched him swallow hard, watched him nearly stumble as he took his place on the platform. Then Ella entered, and even Sarah had to admit she was breathtaking. Her white dress was perfection, her blonde hair crowned with silver flowers. She walked down the aisle with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted her place in the world, her chin high, her smile radiant. That smile faltered when she saw Sarah in the front row, saw Alexander beside her, saw exactly where they were sitting. Her eyes flashed with fury before she schooled her expression back to serene joy. But Sarah had seen it, that crack in the perfect facade. Isa took her place beside Damien, and the officiant, one of the pack's elders, began the ceremony. We gather under the moon goddess's light to witness the joining of two souls, two wolves, two destinies becoming one. The words washed over Sarah. She'd imagined this ceremony so many times in the weeks after Damien rejected her. Imagined sitting in the crowd, watching through tears, breaking apart. But she wasn't breaking. She was watching Damien, seeing the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands trembled slightly as he took Isla's. Seeing him sneak another glance at Sarah, his expression tortured. Do you, Damien Cross, take Isla Thorne as your chosen mate? Do you pledge to honor and protect her? To build a life and legacy together? A pause. Too long, long enough that people shifted uncomfortably. I do, Damien finally said, his voice rough. And do you, Isla Thorne, take Damon Cross as your chosen mate? I do. Isa's voice was clear, firm, triumphant. She was staring at Damien like she'd won a prize. Then, by the power vested in me by the moon goddess, and this pack, I pronounce you bonded mates. May your union bring strength and prosperity to Crescent Moon. It was done. Damien and Isa were mated. The hall erupted in applause. Sarah sat perfectly still, waiting for the pain, waiting for her heart to shatter. But all she felt was nothing. A distant sadness for what might have been maybe, but not the destroying agony she'd feared. Because the mate bond was already broken, had been broken 6 months ago. This ceremony changed nothing for her. But as she watched Damien kiss Isa, a kiss that looked more obligatory than passionate, she saw the exact moment he realized what he'd done. His eyes opened mid-kiss, found Sarah in the front row, and she watched recognition dawn on his face, watched him see her, really see her for the first time. Not the plain library wolf he could dismiss, but a woman powerful enough to catch an alpha king's interest. Beautiful enough to command every eye in the room. Strong enough to sit through his mating ceremony without falling apart. Watched him realize he'd thrown away something rare and precious for political advancement and social status. Watched him understand that he'd lost her forever. And more than that, watched him realize that she was going to be fine, better than fine. She was going to thrive. While he was bound to Isla, Sarah was standing at the precipice of something greater. The kiss ended. Isa pulled back, smiling, oblivious to her new mate's inner turmoil. The newly mated pair turned to face their pack, hands joined, and began walking back down the aisle. As they passed Sarah's row, Damon's steps faltered. He was staring at her again. His expression a complicated mix of regret and longing, and something that might have been grief. Isa noticed. Her smile turned sharp and brittle. Alexander chose that moment to lean toward Sarah, his voice carrying just enough for nearby wolves to hear. Shall we skip the reception? I think we've seen quite enough. Sarah looked up at him, this dangerous alpha king, who'd given her the power to face her fears, who'd stood beside her and made sure everyone saw her worth. Actually, she said clearly, I think I'd like to stay. The reception should be interesting. Alexander's laugh was low and genuine. As you wish. They rose together, and Sarah felt every eye in the hall follow them. The real show was just beginning. Chapter 5. The Reception. The reception was held in the Pax Banquet Hall, a space that had been transformed into something resembling a palace ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across white-draped tables laden with food and champagne. A string quartet played in the corner. Everything was perfect, elegant, expensive. Sarah walked in on Alexander's arm and felt the atmosphere shift immediately. Conversation stuttered, glasses paused halfway to lips. The weight of attention was almost physical, pressing against her from all sides. But this time, instead of fear, Sarah felt something else stirring in her chest. Power, she could sense them now, their curiosity, their envy, their confusion. It was like the air carried emotional currents she'd never been able to read before. The silver scribe awakening, she realized her mother's research had been right. The rejection had cracked something open inside her. "You're doing it again," Alexander murmured as they crossed to the far side of the room. "Doing what?" Reading the room. "I can see it in your eyes. You're sensing them. Their emotions, their intentions." His silver eyes studied her with interest. "It's accelerating. The awakening. Being in a high-stress situation is pushing it forward. Is that normal?" "There's nothing normal about silver scribes. Your gifts manifest differently for everyone. Some see truths, some read emotions, some can sense lies from miles away. You're still discovering what you can do." He guided her to a table near the windows, away from the crowd, but with a perfect view of the entire room. "Tell me what you sense right now." Sarah closed her eyes briefly, focusing on the currents of emotion swirling through the hall. It was overwhelming at first. Too much input, too many feelings colliding, but then patterns emerged. "Fear," she said quietly from Alpha Graham and the pack leadership. "They're terrified of why you're really here." She concentrated harder. "Jealousy from Isla." "Rage. Actually, she's furious that I'm here at all." She opened her eyes, finding Alexander watching her intently. "And Damien, regret?" "Deep consuming regret. It's eating him alive." "Good," Alexander said simply. "He should regret it. Now tell me, are you still afraid?" Sarah considered. "No, I thought I would be. Thought watching him mate someone else would destroy me. But I feel free like chains I didn't know I was wearing. Just fell away. That's the broken mate bond fully dissolving with you, awakening into your true power. What remained of the connection is being burned away by your own magic." He leaned back in his chair, relaxed but alert. "You're not his anymore, Sarah. In any way. How does that feel?" "Like I can finally breathe." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the entrance. Damien and Isla had arrived, making their grand entrance as the newly mated pair. Applause erupted. Wolves rushed to congratulate them, but Sarah saw Damon's eyes immediately find her across the crowded room. Saw the way his expression crumpled for just a moment before he forced a smile. Isa noticed, too. Her perfectly made-up face tightened with anger before she turned to whisper something to her mother. Luna Thorne's eyes narrowed as she looked toward Sarah's table, toward the Alpha King sitting beside the rejected mate like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Trouble incoming," Alexander said mildly. "The Luna looks displeased. Should be entertaining." Sure enough, Luna Thorne was making her way across the room, her smile polite, but her eyes cold. She stopped at their table, performing a curtsy that was technically respectful, but felt mocking. "Alpha King, what an unexpected honor to have you at our celebration. We would have prepared a proper welcome if we'd known. As I've mentioned several times tonight, I don't require special accommodation," Alexander said, his tone pleasant but dismissive. "I'm simply here to support Miss Martinez." Luna Thorne's smile became strained. "Yes, that's surprising. We were all quite shocked to see Sarah arriving with you. I wasn't aware you two were acquainted." "We met recently. I found her intelligence and company refreshing." He took a sip of champagne. "She's quite remarkable. You're Miss Martinez. You should be proud to have her in your pack." The implication was clear. "But you're not, are you?" Luna Thorne's expression flickered. "Sarah has always been a valued member of Crescent Moon. We were, of course, saddened when she and Damien didn't work out. But didn't work out." Alexander's voice went cold. "Is that how you describe a public rejection? How interesting. In my territory, we call it what it is. A male rejecting his true mate for social climbing. But perhaps your pack has different standards." Luna went pale around them. Conversations died as wolves strained to hear. "I assure you, Alpha King, the rejection was complicated. Mate bonds don't always." "The mate bond is sacred," Alexander interrupted, his voice carrying across the now silent hall. "It's a gift from the moon goddess herself. Rejecting a true mate is not complicated. It's an insult to the goddess and to the natural order she created. Or do you disagree, Luna?" It was a trap. Disagreeing would be heresy. Agreeing would condemn Damien. Luna Thorne's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. That's what I thought. Alexander's smile was sharp. Now, if you'll excuse us, I believe Miss Martinez was about to tell me more about your PAX archives. Fascinating collection. From what I've seen, it was a clear dismissal. Luna Thorne had no choice but to retreat, her face flushed with humiliation. Sarah watched her go, her heart hammering. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. They need to understand that insulting my companion insults me. That protecting you means I won't tolerate their casual cruelty. He glanced at her. Besides, watching these social climbing wolves squirm is one of the few pleasures of these events. Despite everything, Sarah found herself smiling. You enjoy making them uncomfortable immensely. Power exists to be used, Sarah, especially when defending those who deserve it. His expression grew more serious. But we should discuss what happens after tonight. You realize you can't stay here? Sarah's smile faded. What do you mean? After this display, after I've publicly claimed you as someone under my protection, this pack will never let you live normally here again. Luna Thorne will make your life hell. Damien's regret will fester into something ugly and evil. He glanced toward the bride, who was staring at Sarah with undisguised hatred. That one is already planning how to make you pay for overshadowing her ceremony. So, what am I supposed to do? Run away? No, come with me. Alexander said it simply, like offering her tea. Come to the royal court. Train with my scholars. Learn to control your gifts. Become what you're meant to be. You said yourself you feel free, so be free. Leave this pack behind. Sarah stared at him. You're asking me to leave everything I know. I'm asking you to leave behind people who never valued you anyway. Your friend Maya would visit. Celeste would understand. Elder Moira would probably throw you a party. His silver eyes held hers. What's really keeping you here, Sarah? Fear of change or the hope that these wolves will somehow finally see your worth? They're my pack, she whispered. Were they really? Or were you just surviving in a place that tolerated you at best? He leaned forward. I'm offering you a chance at something more. A chance to discover what a silver scribe can truly do. A chance to become powerful in your own right. Not just as someone's mate or pack member, but as yourself. Tell me that doesn't tempt you. It did tempt her. God, it terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. But before she could respond, a new commotion erupted. Damien was approaching their table, his expression desperate and determined. Isa was trying to hold him back, but he shook her off, leaving his new mate standing alone as he made his way towards Sarah. This should be interesting, Alexander murmured. Damien stopped in front of their table, his ice-blue eyes fixed on Sarah with an intensity that would have made her weak-kneed 6 months ago. Now she just felt tired, Sarah, he said, his voice rough. Can we talk privately? No, Alexander said before Sarah could respond. You gave up the right to private conversations when you rejected her publicly. Anything you need to say, you can say here. Damon's jaw clenched. This is between Sarah and me. Nothing is between you anymore. You made sure of that. Alexander's tone was ice. But please continue. I'm curious what you think you could possibly have to say to her now. Damien looked at Sarah, ignoring the Alpha King entirely. A dangerous move. You look beautiful. I've never seen you like this. That's because you never really looked at me, Sarah said quietly. The words came easier than she expected. 6 months, Damien. You had 6 months to see me. You chose not to. I was wrong. The words burst out of him. Desperate. I was so wrong, Sarah. I see that now. Seeing you tonight, seeing you with him. He gestured at Alexander. I realized what I threw away. You're my true mate. The moon goddess chose us for each other. Maybe we can. No. Sarah's voice was firm. We can't. But the bond is broken. You rejected me. I accepted. It's done, Damien. She stood, needing to look him in the eye. And even if it wasn't, even if somehow we could go back, I wouldn't want to, because you didn't reject me, because of some tragic misunderstanding. You rejected me because I wasn't good enough for your ambitions, because I was plain and powerless and you wanted better. That's not, it is true, Sarah interrupted. And we both know it. You wanted Isla because she's beautiful and connected, and could advance your position. You got exactly what you wanted. So go back to your mate Damien, the one you chose, and leave me alone. Damien looked stricken. Sarah, please. I know I hurt you, but you don't get to do this, Sarah said, and was surprised by the steadiness in her voice. You don't get to reject me, humiliate me, invite me to watch you mate someone else, and then decide you made a mistake because I showed up looking different. That's not how this works. I still have feelings for you, Damien said desperately. That's called regret, not love, and it's not my problem anymore. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No attraction, no longing, just pity for a male who destroyed something precious because he couldn't see its value. Go back to Isla, live the life you chose, and let me live mine with him. Damien's eyes cut to Alexander, hot with jealousy. You're just using her. Everyone knows the Alpha King doesn't do anything without calculating the benefit. What could you possibly want with someone like Sarah? Alexander stood, moving with predatory grace that made every wolf in the hall tense. He placed himself between Damien and Sarah, his expression deadly calm. Someone like Sarah, he repeated softly, dangerously. You mean someone intelligent, resilient, and awakening into considerable power? Someone whose worth you were too blind and arrogant to recognize? Yes, I absolutely have interest in someone like that. He stepped closer to Damien, who instinctively backed up. But here's what you need to understand, Beta Cross. Whether I'm using her or courting her or simply protecting her is none of your concern. You had your chance with her. You threw it away like garbage. She's not yours to question or claim or even think about anymore. Do I make myself clear? You can't just I am the Alpha King, Alexander said flatly. I can do whatever I want. And what I want right now is for you to return to your mate and stop embarrassing yourself at your own ceremony. Unless you'd like me to ask your Alpha why his Beta is harassing my companion at what should be a celebration. Damon went pale. His eyes darted between Alexander and Sarah, clearly wanting to say more, but recognizing the threat. Fine, he said finally, his voice bitter. But Sarah, when you realize what kind of male he really is, when you're done being his plaything, don't expect me to. The slap came from behind him. Issa had approached during the confrontation, and she looked absolutely furious. Her palm connected with Damon's face with a crack that echoed through the hall. How dare you? She hissed. On our mating day in front of the entire pack, you're making a fool of me for her, Ela. That's not. Don't. Isa's voice shook with rage. Everyone saw it. Everyone saw you leave your new mate to beg your rejected to take you back. Watch your mouth, Sarah said coldly. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere ancient. I may have been rejected, but I was never anyone's, and the only fool here is the male who rejected his true mate and is now trying to crawl back after seeing what he lost. Power crackled in the air around Sarah, actual visible power that made the nearby candles flicker and the champagne glasses ring. Every wolf in the hall felt it, the awakening of something old and dangerous. Ela stepped back, her eyes wide. What? Silver Scribe. Elder Moira's voice came from across the room, filled with awe and satisfaction. The bloodline wakes. Finally, murmurs spread through the crowd. Some wolves looked excited, others fearful. Alpha Graham pushed through the crowd, looking panicked. Sarah, perhaps we should. She should leave, Alexander said firmly, taking Sarah's elbow. This display has gone on long enough. Miss Martinez is clearly exhausted from the evening's excitement. His eyes cut to Alpha Graham. We'll be departing now. Thank you for your hospitality. He guided Sarah toward the exit, the crowd parting before them like water. Sarah let him lead her, her mind spinning. Power still crackled under her skin, making her fingers tingle. What had just happened? What had she done? They were almost to the door when Damien's voice rang out one last time. "Sarah, wait." She turned despite herself. Damien stood in the center of the hall, Isla beside him, looking murderous, the entire pack watching. "I'm sorry," he said, and for the first time he sounded genuine. "I'm truly sorry. I didn't understand what I was doing, didn't understand what you were, but I see it now. I see you now. And goodbye, Damien," Sarah said softly. Then she turned and walked out on Alexander's arm, leaving her old life behind. The cool night air hit her like a shock, cutting through the power haze that had filled the hall. Sarah stumbled, and Alexander caught her, his arm strong and steady. "Easy," he murmured. "The awakening can be overwhelming. Your body isn't used to channeling that much power." "What did I do in there?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. "You claimed your space, asserted your power, showed them all what they'd overlooked." He guided her toward the waiting car. "You were magnificent. I was terrifying." "Even better." He helped her into the car, then slid in beside her. "You don't need to be gentle anymore, Sarah. You don't need to make yourself small for anyone's comfort. You're a Silver Scribe awakening. You're powerful, and the sooner you embrace that, the better." The car pulled away from the hall, from the pack house, from everything Sarah had ever known. She looked back through the rear window, watching the lights fade in the distance. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now?" Alexander's smile was sharp and pleased. "Now you come to the royal court. You learn what you're capable of. You become who you were always meant to be." "And what's that? I don't know yet, but I'm very interested in finding out." Sarah turned to face forward, watching the road stretch out ahead of them, leading away into darkness and possibility. Behind her, her old life, the rejection, the humiliation, the small, quiet existence faded into memory. Ahead of her lay something unknown, something dangerous, something that scared and excited her in equal measure. She'd walked into that ceremony as a rejected mate, trying to prove she wasn't broken. She was leaving as something else entirely, something powerful, something awake. And as they carried her toward her new future, Sarah found herself smiling. The real story was just beginning. If Sarah's transformation from rejected mate to empowered Silver Scribe has you hooked, don't forget to subscribe, because her journey into power, politics, and discovering what the Alpha King really wants is only getting started. You won't want to miss what happens when she enters the royal court. Chapter 6. The Royal Court. The drive to the royal court took 3 hours. Cutting through dense forests and winding mountain roads that Sarah had never traveled. She dozed against the window, exhausted from the emotional upheaval and the strange power that had surged through her at the reception. When she woke, dawn was breaking over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, and before them stood the royal court. Sarah had expected something grand, a palace perhaps, or an elaborate estate. What she got was something far more impressive. The court was built into the mountainside itself, a sprawling complex of stone and glass that seemed to grow organically from the rock. Towers reached toward the sky, gardens cascaded down terrace levels, and everywhere wolves moved with purpose. Warriors training in courtyards, scholars crossing between buildings, servants preparing for the day. It was a city unto itself, the heart of the Western Territo's power. "Welcome home," Alexander said softly, watching her take it all in. "This is incredible," Sarah breathed. "It's functional. We have over 500 wolves in permanent residence here. My personal guard, advisors, scholars, artisans, diplomats, everyone who helps run the territory." He gestured as they pulled through massive gates. "The main palace is there. That's where I live and where formal state business happens. The archives are in the eastern wing. I think you'll appreciate them. And your rooms will be in the scholars' quarter, my rooms." Sarah turned to look at him. "I haven't agreed to stay." Alexander's smile was knowing. "Haven't you? The moment you walked out of that reception with me, you made your choice. You can't go back now, Sarah. They won't let you." And more importantly, his silver eyes held hers. You don't want to. He was right, and they both knew it. The car stopped in front of what looked like a daff entrance, carved directly into the mountain face. Alexander exited first, then offered his hand to help Sarah out. Her legs were unsteady after the long drive, and she was grateful for his support. A woman was waiting for them, tall and elegant, with steel gray hair pulled into a severe bun and sharp hazel eyes that assessed Sarah in a single glance. She wore tailored pants and a crisp white shirt that spoke of efficiency and authority. Alpha King, she said with a respectful nod. Welcome back, and this must be Miss Martinez. Sarah, this is Helena Frost. She runs the court, scheduling, housing, resources, everything that keeps this place functioning. Helena, Sarah Martinez. She'll be staying with us indefinitely. Helena's expression didn't change, but Sarah sensed approval beneath the professional exterior. Welcome, Miss Martinez. I've prepared rooms for you in the scholars' wing as requested. I trust you'll find them comfortable. She glanced at Alexander. The council is requesting an audience. They heard about your appearance at the crescent moon ceremony. I'm sure they did. Tell them I'll meet with them after I've settled. Miss Martinez. His tone made it clear. This wasn't negotiable. Helena nodded crisply. Of course, Miss Martinez, if you'll follow me. Sarah glanced at Alexander, suddenly nervous about being separated from the one familiar element in this overwhelming new place. He seemed to sense her hesitation. Go get settled, rest. I'll come find you this evening, and we'll discuss your training schedule. His expression softened slightly. You're safe here, Sarah. Safer than you've ever been. She wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. So, she nodded and followed Helena into the mountain. The interior of the court was as impressive as the exterior. Vaulted ceilings carved with intricate designs, stone floors polished to a shine, windows that let in natural light while maintaining the feeling of being sheltered deep within the earth. It felt ancient and modern simultaneously. Old magic meeting contemporary power. Helena led her through corridors bustling with activity. Wolves nodded respectfully to Helena as they passed, their eyes curious when they landed on Sarah. You're causing quite a stir, Helena said conversationally as they climbed a wide staircase. Word travels fast in the court. Everyone knows the Alpha King brought back a silver scribe from a minor pack ceremony. I'm not really a silver scribe, Sarah protested. I mean, the bloodline is there, but I don't know what I'm doing. Last night was the first time I've ever manifested power publicly. Helena glanced back at her, one eyebrow raised. Yes, I heard. Apparently you made quite an impression. The Alpha King doesn't usually take such direct interest in awakening bloodlines. You must be something special or useful, Sa said quietly. Helena stopped, turning to face her fully. Listen to me, Miss Martinez. I've worked for Alexander Vulov for 8 years. I've seen him court alliances, manipulate enemies, and play political games that would make your head spin. But I've also seen him recognize genuine potential and nurture it without ulterior motive. She studied Sarah intently. He brought you here because you're awakening into something rare. Yes, he'll want to understand your gifts. Yes, he'll want to know what you can do. But he'll also protect you and help you become stronger. That's not exploitation. That's investment in someone he believes has value. How do you know he believes that? Because he gave you his personal protection in front of 3 packs worth of witnesses. Because he's housing you in the scholars' wing instead of the guest quarters. And because Helena smiled slightly. He asked me to make sure your rooms have a view of the Eastern Gardens. He remembered you work with books and thought you'd appreciate the morning light. Sarah blinked, surprised by that small consideration. Helena resumed walking. The Alpha King is many things, ruthless, strategic, dangerous when crossed. But he's not needlessly cruel, and he doesn't pretend to care about people he doesn't. If he's invested in your well-being, Miss Martinez, it's genuine. They reached a heavy wooden door carved with symbols Sarah didn't recognize. Helena pushed it open, revealing a suite that made Sarah's breath catch. The rooms were spacious but not ostentatious. A sitting area with comfortable furniture, a bedroom with a massive bed covered in soft linens, a bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people, and best of all, an entire wall of windows overlooking terrace gardens that caught the morning sun perfectly. It was more beautiful than anywhere Sarah had ever lived. "There are clothes in the wardrobe," Helena said, gesturing to a door Sarah hadn't noticed. "The Alpha King had them sent over, your sizes from the dress he commissioned. If anything doesn't fit or you need something different, let me know. Meals are served in the main dining hall 3 times a day, or you can request something sent to your rooms. The library is on this floor, 3 doors down. You're free to explore the court, though I'd recommend taking someone with you the first few times. It's easy to get lost." "This is too much," Sarah whispered. "This is the scholars' wing. Everyone here has similar accommodations." Helena's expression softened. "You're not a charity case, Miss Martinez. You're not here on his mercy. You're here because you have gifts that are valuable and rare. The court invests in such people. It's how we maintain our power and knowledge base." She handed Sarah a small phone. "This is linked to the court's internal network. My number is programmed in, as is the Alpha King's. If you need anything, call. Otherwise, I suggest you rest. You've had a long night." Helena left, closing the door softly behind her. Sarah stood alone in her new rooms, overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Yesterday morning, she'd been a rejected Omega, preparing to face her worst nightmare. Now she was standing in the royal court, gifted rooms and clothes and protection by the Alpha King himself. It felt like a dream or a trap, maybe both. She walked to the windows, looking out at the gardens below. Wolves moved through them, some in deep conversation, others reading on benches, a few practicing what looked like meditation or energy work. This was her life now, this strange, powerful, dangerous new world. Sarah closed her eyes and reached for that power she'd felt last night. The crackling energy that had made candles flicker, and wolves stepped back. It was still there, humming just beneath her skin, waiting for her to learn how to use it, waiting for her to become whoever she was meant to be. She just hoped she was strong enough for what came next. Sarah slept through most of the day, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion. When she woke, the sun was setting, painting her rooms in shades of orange and gold. There was a covered tray on the table in her sitting room. Someone had brought food while she slept. Sarah ate mechanically, barely tasting the expertly prepared meal, her mind still processing everything. A knock at her door made her jump. "Come in," she called, setting down her fork. Alexander entered, still dressed formally, but with his jacket discarded and his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked tired but satisfied, like someone who'd spent the day handling difficult problems successfully. "You're awake. Good." He settled into the chair across from her without asking permission. "How are you feeling?" Overwhelmed, confused, terrified, Sarah met his eyes. "Why am I really here, Alexander? And don't tell me it's just because I'm a silver scribe. There's something else. Something you're not saying." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're perceptive. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. It's part of your gift." He leaned forward, his expression turning serious. "You're right, there is more. I do need a silver scribe, and not just for archival work or truth sensing. Then what?" "I need someone who can read the old texts." Sarah frowned. "What old texts?" "Texts written in the first language of our kind. Before wolves modernized. Before we integrated with human society, we had our own written language. Complex, layered with magic, nearly impossible to translate without the specific gift for it." His silver eyes glinted. Silver scribes were the record keepers precisely because they could read and write this language naturally. It's part of your bloodline's magic. I don't know any ancient wolf language, Sarah protested. Not consciously, but it's there, coded in your blood, waiting to be unlocked by your awakening. He pulled something from his pocket, a small leather-bound book, very old, with symbols on the cover that made Sarah's head hurt to look at. This is one of 17 texts we've recovered over the years. No one alive can read them, but according to every historical account I can find, a fully awakened silver scribe should be able to. Sarah took the book carefully. The moment her fingers touched it, something sparked, a connection, a recognition. The symbols on the cover shifted, and for just a moment she could almost understand them. Then the sensation faded, leaving only a headache. I almost, she whispered, saw it, understood it. Alexander leaned forward intently. That's the awakening. Right now your gift is raw and undirected, but with proper training, you'll be able to read these texts as easily as I'm reading your expression right now. What's in them? Why do you need them translated so badly? Alexander's expression grew distant. Knowledge, power, secrets. The modern packs have forgotten. There are problems coming, Sarah. Threats I can't handle with simple force or political maneuvering. I need information. I need to understand the old magic, the old ways before it's too late. Too late for what? I can't tell you that yet. Not until I know what these texts say. He took the book back, handling it reverently. But I will tell you this. The Western Territory is more fragile than anyone realizes. We've grown comfortable, complacent. We've forgotten our roots, our magic, our connection to the moon goddess herself. And something is coming. Something ancient and angry and powerful that our modern weapons and tactics won't be able to stop. Sarah felt cold. You're saying we're in danger? I'm saying the entire wolf species might be in danger if I can't figure out what our ancestors knew and we've forgotten. His eyes met hers, deadly serious. That's why I need you, Sarah. That's why I went to that ceremony. I've had people watching for Silver Scribe descendants for years. When Elder Moira sent word that one might be awakening in Crescent Moon Pack, I had to see for myself. You were there for me specifically, Sarah breathed. The ceremony was just an excuse. Yes. He didn't look apologetic, though. Humiliating your former mate was a pleasant bonus. You used me. I offered you a way out of an impossible situation while simultaneously pursuing something I needed. That's not using. That's mutual benefit. He stood, pacing, to her windows. But I want to be clear, Sarah. I'm not forcing you to help me. If you want to leave, I'll arrange safe transport anywhere you want to go. I'll provide money, recommendations, protection. You're not a prisoner here. But if you stay, I'll train you, help you understand your gifts, give you access to knowledge and resources most wolves can only dream of. And yes, I'll ask you to help me translate these texts, to help me understand what's coming and how to stop it. He turned to face her. In exchange, you'll be under my protection. No one will harm you. No one will reject or belittle you. And you'll have the freedom to become as powerful as your bloodline allows. It was a good offer. A generous offer, even. But Sarah had learned to look for the catch. What happens when you don't need me anymore? When the texts are translated and your mysterious threat is handled? Alexander smiled. Something genuine and almost warm. Then you'll be a fully awakened silver scribe with knowledge and power. You'll be able to write your own future. Advisor to the Alpha King if you want it. Scholar in your own right. Teacher for any other silver scribes who awaken. Or you can leave. Start your own life somewhere and I'll make sure you have everything you need to do it. He met her eyes. I don't believe in burning bridges with valuable people. Sarah, help me now and you'll have my support for life. That's the deal. Sarah looked down at her hands, thinking she could leave, take his offer of safe transport, start over somewhere new, try to figure out her powers alone, or she could stay, learn, become strong, help him with whatever mysterious threat he was worried about. Both options were terrifying in different ways, but only one offered answers. If I stay, she said slowly, I want to know everything. No more secrets. No more mysterious hints about coming threats. If you want my help, I need to understand what I'm helping with. Alexander considered this, then nodded. Agreed. Though some things I can only explain once you've read enough of the texts to understand the context. Deal. He offered his hand. Sarah looked at it. Strong, capable, belonging to someone who turned her life upside down in less than 24 hours. Someone dangerous, manipulative, powerful beyond measure. Someone who'd also given her a way out of her nightmare and offered to help her become something more. She took his hand. Deal. His smile was victorious. Excellent. Your training starts tomorrow. I've arranged for Cassandra. She's my most skilled energy worker to help you learn control, and I'll work with you personally on the translation attempts. He headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Sarah, welcome to the royal court. I think you're going to be exactly what we need. Then he was gone, leaving Sarah alone with her swirling thoughts and the weight of a decision that would change everything. She walked back to the windows, looking out at the court below. Somewhere in this complex were ancient texts filled with secrets. Somewhere was knowledge about threats and old magic and forgotten power, and somehow she was supposed to help unlock it all. Sarah pressed her hand to the window glass, feeling the cool surface against her palm. What have I gotten myself into? She whispered to the empty room. The gardens below offered no answers, just the peaceful movement of wolves going about their evening. But somewhere deep inside her, in the place where the silver scribe magic was awakening, Sarah felt a spark of excitement alongside the fear. For the first time in her life, she had a purpose beyond survival. She had a mystery to solve, power to master, a future to build, and maybe, just maybe, she was finally becoming who she was always meant to be. Chapter 7. The Awakening. Sarah woke before dawn to someone pounding on her door. Up, 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 a cheerful voice called. Training starts at sunrise, and I don't tolerate lateness. Sarah stumbled out of bed, disoriented and still half asleep. She opened the door to find a woman who looked like she'd been made from pure energy. Petite but vibrant with wild copper curls, freckles scattered across dark skin, and eyes that glowed with an unnatural amber light. You must be Sarah. The woman pushed past her into the room without invitation. I'm Cassandra Kim, energy worker extraordinaire, and your new favorite person. We have exactly 30 minutes to get you dressed, fed, and to the training courtyard. Move. I just woke up, Sarah protested. Then you woke up late. Power doesn't wait for beauty sleep, sweetheart. Cassandra was already rifling through the wardrobe, pulling out training clothes, flexible pants, a fitted top, soft shoes. Put these on. There's coffee and breakfast bars on your table. Eat while you dress. We're burning daylight. It's still dark outside. Exactly. We're already behind, but Cassandra's grin suggested she was enjoying Sarah's confusion. Come on, Silver Scribe, let's see what you're made of. 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself in a stone courtyard on the eastern edge of the court, coffee still warming her hands, watching the sun creep over the mountain peaks. The courtyard was circular, with symbols carved into the stone floor. The same kinds of symbols that had been on the ancient text Alexander showed her. Around the perimeter, braziers burned with flames that seemed too steady, too bright to be natural. This is a training circle, Cassandra explained, moving to the center. The symbols amplify and contain magical energy. When you're learning control, you don't want your power bleeding out all over the place, causing problems. In here, we're safe to push your limits. I don't know how to use my power, Sarah admitted last night at the ceremony. It just happened because you were angry and scared and had no control. Emotions are the easiest trigger for raw power. Cassandra gestured for Sarah to join her in the center. But emotions are also messy and unpredictable. If you want to be useful instead of dangerous, you need to learn to access your gift consciously. So tell me what you felt when the power manifested. Sarah thought back to the reception, to Issa calling her to the rage that had bubbled up from somewhere deep and primal. Heat, she said slowly. Like fire under my skin, and pressure like something pushing outward, wanting to be released. Good description. That's your energy body recognizing it has power it wants to use. Cassandra began walking around Sarah in a slow circle. Every wolf has an energy body. It's what lets us shift, what connects us to the moon goddess, what makes the mate bond possible. But most wolves never learn to consciously manipulate their energy beyond the basic shift. They just let instinct handle it. I and silver scribes are different. Silver scribes don't just have energy. You have channels, pathways that let you sense, read, and manipulate information itself. Truth and lies, emotions and intentions. And most importantly, Cassandra stopped in front of her. You can read and write with pure energy. That's what lets you understand the old language. The symbols aren't just pictures. They're concentrated packets of information and magic that your gift can decode. Sarah's head was already spinning. That sounds complicated. It is, which is why we're starting simple. Cassandra held out her hand. Take my hand and close your eyes. I'm going to push a tiny bit of my energy toward you. Your job is to sense it, understand what it feels like, and describe it to me. Sarah took Cassandra's hand, closing her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she felt it. A warmth flowing from Cassandra's palm into hers. Not physical heat, but something else. Something that carried information. You're excited, Sarah said uncertainly, and curious and amused. Excellent. Cassandra squeezed her hand. You're reading my emotional state through the energy. That's basic empathy work. Most wolves can't do it at all. But for you, it should be as natural as breathing once you practice. Now, I'm going to think of a specific memory. Tell me what you sense. The energy shifted and suddenly Sarah was flooded with impressions. I am a sunshine. Laughter, the taste of strawberries, a feeling of pure joy. Summer, Sarah whispered. You're remembering summer, something happy. A picnic. Maybe someone you love was there. My daughter's 4th birthday 7 years ago. Cassandra's voice was thick with emotion. That's advanced work, Sarah. You pulled a specific memory from general emotional energy. Do you understand what that means? Sarah opened her eyes. That I can read people, that you can read truth. Memory is truth. It's what actually happened, filtered through emotion and perspective. If you can sense memory, you can sense when someone's lying, when they're hiding something, when their words don't match their internal reality. Cassandra's expression grew serious. That's an incredibly powerful gift and an incredibly dangerous one. People will fear you if they know you can read them like a book. Then why teach me? Because the Alpha King needs someone he can trust to tell him truth. And because you deserve to understand what you're capable of. Cassandra released her hand. Now, let's see if we can get you to manifest power intentionally instead of just when you're angry. The next hour was frustrating. Cassandra had Sarah try to channel energy through various exercises, lighting candles with just focus, moving small objects, creating shields of pure energy. Sarah failed at all of them. I can't do this, she said finally, exhausted and discouraged. You're trying to force it. Power doesn't respond well to force from beginners. Cassandra sat down on the stone floor, gesturing for Sarah to join her. Let me ask you something. Why did you agree to come here? What do you really want? Sarah sat thinking about the question. I want to understand what I am. I want to be strong enough that no one can reject me or dismiss me ever again. I want. She paused. I want to matter. There it is. Cassandra smiled. That's your why. That's your anchor. When you're trying to access power, don't think about the mechanics. Think about why you need it. Think about that feeling at the ceremony when you finally stood up for yourself. Channel that. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering the surge of power. The moment of clarity when she told Damien and Isla exactly what she thought. The feeling of being seen. Heat bloomed under her skin. That's it, Cassandra said quietly. Don't force it. Just let it flow. Now, open your eyes and look at the candle in front of you. Don't try to light it. Just push some of that warmth toward it, like offering it a gift. Sarah opened her eyes. A candle sat on the stone about 3 feet away. She focused on it, feeling the warmth in her chest and imagined extending it outward. The candle flickered, then caught. A small flame danced to life. "I did it," Sarah breathed. "You did it." Cassandra laughed. "First day, first successful manifestation. The Alpha King is going to be insufferably smug about being right about you." They worked for another hour, Sarah practicing the basic energy manipulation until she could light candles consistently. It was exhausting. Each use of power drained her a little more until she was shaking with fatigue. "Enough," Cassandra said finally. "You've done excellent work for a first session. Go eat, rest, and we'll continue tomorrow." Sarah stood on trembling legs. "Thank you for being patient with me, honey. Patience is my least favorite virtue. I'm just invested in seeing what you become." Cassandra's expression softened. "You've got real power in you, Sarah. Raw and unformed, but genuine. The Alpha King wasn't wrong to bring you here. Now go. You've earned a break." Sarah spent the afternoon in the library Helena had mentioned. It was magnificent. 3 stories of floor-to-ceiling books with rolling ladders, comfortable reading nooks, and tables covered in scrolls and manuscripts. The smell of old paper and leather bindings was intoxicating. She was browsing the history section when she felt someone watching her. "You must be the new silver scribe everyone's talking about." Sarah turned to find a male wolf studying her with open curiosity. He was tall and lean with warm brown skin, short black hair, and intelligent dark eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore scholar's robes, deep blue with silver trim. "I'm Sarah Martinez," she said, offering her hand. "And I'm not really a silver scribe yet, still figuring out what that means. Marcus Chen, head librarian and the court's primary historical researcher." He shook her hand warmly. "And don't sell yourself short. If Alexander brought you here specifically, you're already more than you think you are. He doesn't make mistakes about bloodline potential. You sound like you know him well. I've worked for him for 6 years, helped him track down most of those old texts he's obsessed with." Marcus gestured to a private study room. "Speaking of which, he asked me to give you an orientation to the collection, show you what we have, what we're looking for, that sort of thing. Have time now." Sarah followed him into the study room, which was lined with locked glass cases containing ancient-looking books and scrolls. "This is our secured collection," Marcus explained. "Everything here is at least 300 years old. Some pieces date back to the founding of the first wolf packs, and these..." He pointed to a special case containing 17 small leather-bound books. "Are the old texts, the ones written in the first language that none of us can read." Sarah moved closer, studying them through the glass. Just looking at them made her head hurt. The same sensation she'd felt when Alexander showed her one. "Why do they do that?" she asked. "Why does looking at them hurt?" "Because they're not meant for modern wolves. They're encoded with magic that only unlocks for specific bloodlines. Silver scribes being the primary one." Marcus pulled out a key, unlocking the case. Alexander said, "You should try examining them again. See if your training this morning made any difference." He carefully removed the smallest text and handed it to Sarah. The moment her fingers touched it, the pain intensified. But this time, underneath the pain, she felt something else, a pulling sensation, like the book wanted to communicate, but couldn't quite bridge the gap. Sarah opened it carefully. The pages were covered in symbols, knee, flowing, organic shapes that seemed to shift when she looked at them directly. But now, after Cassandra's training, after learning to sense energy, she could feel something. "There's information here," she said slowly. "I can feel it like pressure, like something trying to be released, but I can't access it yet. But you can sense it. That's progress." Marcus leaned forward eagerly. "What does it feel like?" The information old important, and Sarah frowned, trying to articulate the sensation. Warning. This book feels like a warning. About what? I don't know. I can't read it yet. Frustration welled up. It's right there, right at the edge of my understanding, but I can't quite grasp it. Give it time. From what Cassandra told me, you lit your first intentional candle this morning. You're not going to be reading ancient, magical texts this afternoon. Marcus took the book back gently, returning it to the case. But the fact that you can sense its general purpose. That's remarkable, Sarah. Most wolves don't even get that much. A knock at the study room door interrupted them. Helena entered, her expression professional, but with an undertone of urgency. Miss Martinez, the Alpha King requests your presence in his private study immediately. Oh. Something in her tone made Sarah's stomach tighten. Is something wrong? He didn't say, but he was intense. Helena's eyes flicked to Marcus. You should go now. Sarah followed Helena through corridors. She was already starting to recognize deeper into the mountain, until they reached a heavy door carved with intricate wolf imagery. Helena knocked once, then opened it. Miss Martinez, as requested. Thank you, Helena. Alexander's voice came from within. Sarah entered to find him, standing by floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the western valley. His back was to her, his posture tense. The door closed behind her, leaving them alone. You wanted to see me? Sarah asked. I received word from Crescent Moonpack. Alexander turned to face her, and his expression was cold, fury barely contained. From your former beta, specifically Sarah's blood chilled. What did Damon want? To lodge a formal complaint about my conduct at his ceremony. To suggest I coerced or manipulated you into leaving with me. To demand your return to your home pack for your own safety. His eyes glittered dangerously. He's claiming I abducted you. That's insane. I came willingly. I know that, but he's making it a formal political issue, questioning my authority, my methods, my treatment of pack members under my protection. Alexander's jaw clenched. And more concerning, he's not doing this alone. Alpha Graham co-signed the complaint. So did Luna Thorne. They're making this an official pack grievance against the Crown. Sarah felt sick. Why? Why would they do this? Because they're embarrassed. Because I humiliated them publicly and they want revenge. Because his eyes met hers. They realized too late what you might become, and now they want you back. Not because they care about you, but because a silver scribe is a valuable asset they threw away. What are you going to do? Alexander's smile was cold and sharp. I'm going to give them exactly what they asked for, a formal response to their formal complaint. He moved to his desk, picking up a document. But first, I need to know something from you, Sarah, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay? Do you want to go back? If I arranged safe return to Crescent Moon, if I could guarantee they'd treat you well, would you go? Sarah didn't even have to think about it. No. Even knowing that staying here might cause political problems, that your former pack is actively trying to reclaim you, especially knowing that. Sarah moved closer, looking him in the eye. They didn't want me when I was nothing. They don't get to claim me now that I might be something. I chose to leave. I chose to come here. That was my decision, and I'm standing by it, Sixus Ray. Something like approval flickered in Alexander's expression. Then we're going to make sure they understand that. Come here. He guided her to the desk where an official-looking document waited. This is a formal declaration of voluntary residency at the royal court. It states that you came here of your own free will, that you're under no duress or coercion, and that you're choosing to remain as a guest and student of the Crown. Your signature makes it legally binding and shuts down their complaint completely. Sarah picked up the pen. What happens if I sign this? You officially sever all formal ties with Crescent Moon Pack. You'll no longer be under their Alpha's authority. Instead, you'll be under mine. Not as a pack member, but as a court resident. You'll have autonomy, protections, and the right to leave whenever you choose. But while you're here, I'm responsible for your well-being. And if I don't sign, then I have to take their complaints seriously and at least consider returning you for mediation. It would be a political nightmare, but I'd handle it. His silver eyes held hers. But I won't force you either way. This is your choice, Sarah. Your future. What do you want? Sarah looked at the document, at the pen in her hand, at the Alpha King watching her with an intensity that suggested her answer mattered more than he was letting on. She thought about Crescent Moon Pack, about years of being invisible, about Damien's rejection, about walking into that ceremony and finally being seen. She thought about this morning, lighting her first candle with pure energy, about ancient texts waiting to be read, about becoming someone powerful enough that no one could ever dismiss her again. The choice was easy. Sarah signed her name with a steady hand. I want to stay. I want to learn. I want to become who I'm meant to be. She looked up at Alexander, and I want to help you figure out what threat you're so worried about. So, let's make it official. Alexander took the document, his smile sharp and satisfied. Welcome to the royal court. Sarah Martinez, formally and officially, he moved to a side table where a bottle of amber liquid waited. This calls for a toast. He poured 2 glasses, handing one to Sarah, to new beginnings, to old magic awakening, and to showing certain wolves that they should have appreciated what they had. Sarah raised her glass to choosing my own future. They drank, the liquid burning pleasantly down her throat. Now, Alexander said, setting down his glass, let's draft my response to your former pack. I want them to understand exactly how badly they miscalculated, as he pulled out fresh paper and began writing. Sarah watched him work, watched this powerful, dangerous Alpha King who'd turned her life upside down and given her a chance at something more. She still didn't fully trust him, still didn't understand all his motivations, but for the first time in her life, she was choosing her own path instead of accepting the one others carved for her, and that felt like power all its own. Chapter 8. The First Translation. 3 weeks passed in a blur of training, study, and gradual transformation. Sarah fell into a routine that felt more purposeful than anything she'd experienced in her old life. Mornings with Cassandra, learning to channel and control her energy. Afternoons in the library with Marcus, studying the history of silver scribes, and trying to understand the context of the old texts. Evenings with Alexander, where he'd test her progress and share what little he knew about the coming threat he feared. She was getting stronger, not just magically, but physically, mentally. The court's training was rigorous, but effective. She could now light candles without concentration, sense emotions from across a room, and even create small shields of protective energy. But she still couldn't read the old texts until the morning of the 4th week. Sarah woke before dawn with a splitting headache and symbols dancing behind her eyelids. She dreamed of the texts again, vivid dreams where the symbols came alive, trying to tell her something urgent, something vital. She gave up on sleep, dressed quickly, and made her way to the library while the court was still mostly asleep. Marcus kept the secured collection locked, but he'd given Sarah access weeks ago, trusting her with the precious materials. She unlocked the case with trembling hands and removed the smallest text, the one that had felt like a warning when she first touched it. The symbols on the cover still hurt to look at, but the pain was different now. Sharper, more focused, like a key that was almost, but not quite, fitting into a lock. Sarah sat at the study table, the text in front of her, and closed her eyes. She did what Cassandra had taught her, found her anchor, her reason for needing this power. She thought about being dismissed and rejected, about being told she didn't matter, about the determination to prove them all wrong. Heat bloomed under her skin. Power surged through her channels. When she opened her eyes, the symbols were glowing. Not physically. She could still see them as black marks on yellowed pages. But overlaid on top of them was a luminous script that pulsed with energy, with meaning, with information that her silver scribe gift could finally decode. Her hand moved without conscious thought, pulling paper and pencil toward her, and she began to translate. The words came slowly at first, then faster as her gift found its rhythm. In the time before memory, when wolves first learned to speak with human tongues and walk on two legs, there was a covenant made between our kind and the earth itself. We were given the gift of transformation, the blessing of the mate bond, the protection of the moon goddess. In exchange, we promised to be guardians, protectors, keepers of the balance between the wild and the civilized. Sarah's hand cramped, but she couldn't stop. The words kept flowing, but guardians can become complacent. Protectors can forget what they protect. And when the balance tips too far, when wolves forget their sacred duty and live only for themselves, the earth remembers, the old magic remembers, and what was given can be taken away. Her headache intensified, but Sarah pushed through it. This text is a warning for those who come after. There is a price for abandoning the covenant. There are consequences for treating sacred gifts as entitlements. When enough wolves have rejected their true mates, when enough packs have prioritized power over purpose, when enough of our kind have forgotten what we are. Sarah's hand shook violently, but she kept writing. The culling will come. She stopped, staring at the words she'd written. The culling. The term carried weight, carried horror, carried implications that made her blood run cold. "What's the culling?" she whispered to the empty library. The text didn't answer, but more symbols glowed, demanding translation. The culling is the earth's reset. When wolves have strayed too far from their purpose, an ancient force awakens to remind us what we are. It strips away the gifts of those deemed unworthy. It breaks mate bonds that should never have been made. It forces us back to our roots, back to the wild, back to the beginning. Sarah felt sick. How do we stop it? The culling cannot be stopped. It can only be survived by those who remember, those who honor the covenant, those who treat the sacred as sacred. The purge will come for the unfaithful, the arrogant, the false. But those who are true, true to their mates, true to their purpose, true to the old ways, will endure more symbols, more translations. Her hand was bleeding now from gripping the pencil so hard, but she couldn't stop. The signs of the culling's approach. Mate bonds will break without rejection. Shifts will fail. The moon goddess's light will dim. Wolves will lose their connection to pack, to purpose, to the magic that makes them more than human. And then she will come. Who? Sarah demanded, tears streaming down her face from the pain in her head. Who will come? The first wolf. The mother of monsters, the one who gave us this gift and can take it away. She sleeps in the deep places, in the forgotten spaces, waiting for the balance to break. And when she wakes, she will judge us all. The glowing symbols faded. The connection broke. Sarah slumped forward, her head hitting the table. Unconscious before she even realized she was falling, she woke to Alexander's voice calling her name and strong hands shaking her shoulders. Sarah, Sarah, wake up! She opened her eyes to find him leaning over her, his expression genuinely worried. Behind him stood Cassandra, Marcus, and Helena, all looking concerned. What happened? Alexander demanded. Helena found you unconscious in the library. There's blood on your hands. Sarah sat up slowly, every muscle in her body aching. Her head felt like it had been split open and reassembled wrong, but more pressing than the pain was the urgent need to tell him what she'd learned. I did it, she rasped. I translated one of the texts. The room went silent. You what? Marcus breathed. The smallest one, the warning. Sarah reached for the papers she'd been writing on, her hands still shaking. It's about the culling. That's what you've been worried about, isn't it? That's the threat. Alexander took the papers, his silver eyes scanning her translation rapidly. She watched his expression shift from hope to concern to something approaching fear. You've heard of this before, Sarah said. It wasn't a question. Rumors, fragments of old stories, nothing concrete. He looked up at her, until now. Sarah, do you understand what you've just done? This is the first full translation of the old language in over 200 years. This is terrifying, Sarah supplied. Because that's what it feels like to me. Necessary, Alexander corrected. We needed to know. We needed confirmation. He handed the papers to Marcus. Copy these. Distribute them to the council. We need to convene an emergency meeting. Wait, Sarah said, struggling to stand. Cassandra caught her arm, steadying her. What is the culling, really? The text talks about it like we should know. But I don't understand what it means. Alexander's jaw clenched. It means that every 2 or 3 centuries, when wolf society has degraded enough, when we've strayed too far from what we're supposed to be, something happens. A purge. Wolves start losing their abilities, mate bonds dissolve, entire packs collapse. And then people start dying. How many people last time? Over half the wolf population. His eyes were haunted. It happened in the early 1800s. My great-great-grandfather survived it and left records. He described it as the moon goddess's judgment. A culling of the unworthy. Those who'd rejected mates. Those who'd abused their power. Those who'd forgotten what it meant to be wolves. They lost everything. Their shifts failed. Their bonds broke. They wasted away or went mad. And the ones who survived, the ones who were true, who honored their bonds, who remembered the old ways. Alexander looked at her intently, the ones who were worthy. Sarah felt cold. You think it's happening again? I know it is. The signs are already starting. There have been reports from outlying packs, mate bonds breaking spontaneously, shifts failing, wolves losing their connection to pack magic. It's subtle right now, easy to dismiss as individual problems. But it's spreading, and if the pattern holds from last time, it's going to get much worse before it gets better. How much worse? Catastrophic civilization ending for our kind. He moved to the window, staring out at the court. That's why I needed the texts translated. I needed to know if what I was seeing was really the culling or just coincidence. Now I know. And now I need to figure out how to save as many wolves as possible before she wakes. The first wolf, Sarah said, remembering the text. The mother of monsters. That's who she is. The original wolf, the source of all our magic. According to the old stories, she was the first human to receive the gift of transformation from the moon goddess. She became the mother of our entire species. And when we stray too far, she wakes from her eternal sleep and judges us. Alexander's hands clenched into fists. I've been trying to find where she sleeps, trying to figure out if there's a way to stop her awakening, or at least delay it, but without being able to read the texts. Now you can, Sarah said quietly. Through me. He turned to face her, and the weight in his eyes was crushing. Yes, through you, Sarah. I need you to translate all 17 texts. We need to understand everything. How the culling works, what triggers it, if there's any way to stop it or survive it. Everything depends on what's written in those books. No pressure, Sarah said weakly, trying for humor and failing. Immense pressure, Alexander corrected. I won't lie to you about that. What you just did, translating that text, might be the most important thing anyone has done in the last century, and I'm going to need you to do it 16 more times. He moved closer, his expression intense. Can you do that? Can you handle that responsibility? Sarah looked at the books still locked in their case, looked at the translation she just completed, looked at her bleeding hands, and thought about the splitting headache that still pounded behind her eyes. 16 more times. 16 more sessions of pain and power and pushing herself beyond her limits. It should have felt impossible. Instead, it felt necessary. Yes, she said. I can do it. It will hurt. Cassandra warned quietly. What you just did, channeling that much energy, forcing a gift that's barely awakened to work at such an advanced level. It's going to damage you if you push too hard too fast. Then we'll be careful, Alexander said. Pace it out. Take breaks between translations. Make sure Sarah's healthy and strong enough for each attempt. He looked at Cassandra. Can you help with that? Manage her energy levels. Make sure she doesn't burn herself out. I can try, but there are limits to what even I can do. Cassandra met his eyes. If she pushes too hard, she could damage her channels permanently. Or worse, then we'll make sure that doesn't happen. Alexander's tone broke to no argument. He turned back to Sarah. I'm not going to sacrifice you for this. Understand? Well, work at whatever pace keeps you safe, but I need you to be honest with me about your limits. Don't be a hero. Don't push yourself until you break. I'm not trying to be a hero, Sarah said. But if what you're saying is true, if half the wolf population could die if we don't figure this out, then I'm not going to hold back just to stay comfortable. Something like respect flickered in Alexander's expression, spoken like a true silver scribe. They were always the ones willing to sacrifice for the greater good. He gestured to Helena. Get her to the healers. Make sure there's no permanent damage from this first translation, and someone bring food to her rooms. She's going to need to eat and rest. I'm fine, Sarah protested, even as her legs threatened to give out. You're not fine. You're exhausted and probably mildly concussed from whatever you just put your brain through. Alexander caught her before she could fall, his arms strong and steady. Don't argue. You're brilliant and powerful and exactly what we need, but you're also still learning, and pushing yourself to collapse isn't going to help anyone. He was right, and Sarah was too tired to argue. She let Helena and Cassandra guide her out of the library back toward her rooms, while Alexander and Marcus remained behind to discuss the implications of what she'd discovered. As they walked through the corridors, Sarah's mind kept returning to the translation, to the words she'd written in her own shaking hand. The culling will come for the unfaithful, the arrogant, the false. She thought about Damien, about Isla, about all the wolves who treated mate bonds like business transactions and sacred gifts like entitlements. Were they going to die? Were they going to lose everything? And more terrifying, was Sarah somehow responsible for saving them even after everything they'd done to her? The healers were efficient and thorough, checking her energy channels, treating the minor bleeding in her hands, giving her something that dulled the headache to a manageable throb. They declared her physically fine, but magically exhausted, prescribing rest and rich food to rebuild her energy reserves. By the time they left, Sarah was alone in her rooms with a tray of food she was too anxious to eat. A knock at her door made her look up. Come in, she called, expecting Helena or maybe Cassandra with more instructions. Instead, Alexander entered, carrying 2 glasses of wine and looking more tired than she'd ever seen him. I thought you might want company, he said, offering her one of the glasses, and maybe an explanation about what happens next. Sarah took the wine gratefully. What does happen next? I'm calling a territory-wide council meeting. All 30 packs under my rule. I'm going to tell them what you discovered. Warn them about the culling. Give them a chance to prepare. He sat down across from her, his usual confidence dimmed by exhaustion. And I'm going to ask them to start honoring the old ways again. Stop treating mate bonds like political tools. Stop forgetting what we are. Will they listen? Some will, some won't. Some will think I'm insane for believing ancient prophecies and warnings written in dead languages. His smile was bitter. But I have to try because, if I don't and the culling comes in full force, millions of wolves will die, and I'm not willing to let that happen without a fight. Sarah studied him over the rim of her wineglass. You really care about them. All of them. Not just the powerful ones or the useful ones. All of them. I'm the Alpha King. They're my responsibility. Of course I care. He looked at her, and something vulnerable flickered in his expression. Does that surprise you? A little. I thought you were just strategic, calculating, using people for what they could give you. I am strategic. I do calculate. And yes, I use people's skills and gifts to achieve my goals. He leaned forward, But my goals are to protect and strengthen our species to make sure we survive and thrive. That requires caring. Sarah, cold calculation alone doesn't inspire loyalty, doesn't make people willing to sacrifice, doesn't build the kind of unity we're going to need to survive what's coming. So, you do have a heart under all that cold alpha king exterior. Don't tell anyone. It would ruin my reputation. But his smile was genuine, almost warm. Thank you, Sarah, for what you did today. For being brave enough to push yourself to translate that text. For giving us the information we desperately needed. I haven't finished. There are 16 more texts, and you'll translate them when you're ready. But what you've already done. He raised his glass in a toast. That was extraordinary, and I won't forget it. They drank in comfortable silence, the weight of the world's problems feeling slightly more manageable with shared burdens. Can I ask you something? Sarah said, finally. Always. Why did you really come to Crescent Moon that night? You said you knew about me, that you'd been tracking Silver Scribe descendants. But why me specifically? There must be others out there. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. There are others. 3 that we know of, but 2 are children, too young to have awakened. And the third, he grimaced. Let's just say he has no interest in helping anyone but himself. When Elder Moira sent word that you were showing signs of awakening, that your rejection might have triggered your gifts, I had to see for myself. And I found exactly what I needed. Someone intelligent, resilient, someone who'd been through hell and came out stronger, instead of broken. Someone who understood pain and loss and still chose to fight. His silver eyes held hers. Someone worthy of the power she was awakening into. That's rare, Sarah. Rarer than you know. I'm not special, Sarah protested. I'm just, if you say just a librarian, I'm going to throw you out that window. His tone was light, but his eyes were serious. You're a silver scribe who translated a text that's been unreadable for 2 centuries. You're a wolf who walked into her worst nightmare with her head high. You're someone who's stronger than she believes and more important than she understands. So stop diminishing yourself. It's beneath you. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had spoken to her like that? Like she mattered. Like she was valuable, not for what she could do for them, but for who she was. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Just keep being yourself. He stood, moving toward the door. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we'll start planning the next translation. But for now, let yourself breathe. You've earned it. He left. And Sarah sat alone with her wine and her thoughts, and the weight of knowing that the fate of their entire species might rest on her ability to read ancient books. No pressure at all. She looked out at the gardens below, at the wolves moving through their evening routines, completely unaware that their world was about to change. The culling was coming. And somehow Sarah Martinez, why the rejected Omega, the plain library wolf, the one nobody had ever thought mattered, was the key to surviving it. Life, she thought with dark humor, had a twisted sense of irony. Chapter 9. The Council. 2 weeks later, the royal court was transformed into a nerve center of political power. Alphas arrived from all 30 packs in the Western Territory, bringing their betas, lunas, and key advisors. The court's great hall, usually reserved for state ceremonies, was converted into a massive council chamber with seats arranged in a semicircle facing a raised platform where Alexander would address them. Sarah watched the arrivals from her window, her stomach twisting with anxiety. "You don't have to attend," Cassandra said from behind her. She'd come to help Sarah prepare, though Sarah wasn't sure what preparation could possibly be enough for this. Alexander can present the translation without you there. He shouldn't have to. Sarah turned from the window. I'm the one who translated it. I should be there to answer questions, to defend what I found. You know they're going to challenge you, question your credentials, suggest you made mistakes, or that Alexander is manipulating you for political gain. Cassandra's expression was worried. Some of these alphas are old school. They don't like change, don't trust prophecies, and definitely don't appreciate being told their way of life is causing a supernatural catastrophe. Then they're going to be very unhappy with what I have to say. Sarah moved to the wardrobe, pulling out the outfit Helen had selected, formal but not ostentatious, in deep midnight blue, that matched the dress she'd worn to the ceremony. I'm not going to hide, Cassandra. Not anymore, Cassandra smiled, pride evident in her expression. Good, because hiding that power of yours would be a waste. She moved to help Sarah with her hair, arranging it in an elegant style that looked effortless but professional. Just remember, you're not trying to convince everyone. You're just trying to plant seeds of truth. Some will listen, some won't, but the ones who matter will hear you. An hour later, Sarah found herself standing in the wings of the great hall, watching the alphas take their seats. The energy in the room was electric. Anticipation mixed with skepticism, mixed with curiosity about why the Alpha King had called this unprecedented gathering. Marcus appeared beside her, his usual scholarly calm replaced with nervous energy. I've prepared copies of your translation for distribution. Alexander wants everyone to read your exact words. See your methodology. Understand that this isn't just speculation. What if they don't believe it? Then we'll have to convince them or watch them suffer the consequences when the culling accelerates. Marcus' expression was grim. I've been researching the last culling, reading first-hand accounts from survivors. Sarah, it was horrible. Wolves going mad as their connection to pack magic severed. Families torn apart as mate bonds dissolved. Entire bloodlines ending because shifts failed at critical moments. If even half of what happened last time happens again, he didn't need to finish. Sarah understood the stakes. Alexander strode past them toward the platform, and Sarah felt the shift in his energy. This wasn't the somewhat relaxed male who'd shared wine in her rooms or patiently explained translation methodology. This was the Alpha King in full power, commanding, authoritative, radiating dominance that made every wolf in the room instinctively straighten. He took his place at the center of the platform, and the hall fell silent. Alphas of the Western Territory, he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space. I've called you here because we face a threat unlike any in our lifetimes. A threat that doesn't care about pack politics or territorial disputes or personal ambitions. A threat that will judge us all and find many of us wanting. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several alphas exchanged skeptical glances. 3 weeks ago, I brought a silver scribe to the royal court, the first one to fully awaken in over 2 centuries, and with her gifts, we've been able to translate texts that have been unreadable since the early 1800s, texts that contain warnings about a phenomenon called the culling. More murmurs. Louder now. Sarah recognized Alpha Graham from Crescent Moon in the 3rd row, his expression dark with what looked like anger and embarrassment. The culling is a supernatural purge that occurs when wolf society has degraded too far, when we've forgotten our sacred duties, when we've treated mate bonds as political tools rather than divine gifts, when we've become more concerned with power than purpose. Alexander's eyes swept the room, and according to the texts, according to the signs I've been tracking, it's happening again right now. A male alpha stood up, large, aggressive, looking with a scar across his face. With respect, Alpha King, this sounds like superstitious nonsense. Old wives' tales meant to scare young wolves into obedience. The culling is a myth. Is it, Alpha? Alexander's tone was cold. Then how do you explain the 3 mate bonds in your pack that dissolved spontaneously in the last 6 months? Or the 4 wolves who've reported shift failures or the general sense of disconnection your pack members have been experiencing? Alpha Stone palled. How do you know about that? Because I've been tracking it across all 30 packs, and the pattern is consistent and accelerating. Alexander gestured, and Marcus moved forward, with stacks of documents. You're all receiving copies of the translated text along with that data I've compiled fast on central anomalies across the territory. Read it, study it, and then tell me I'm being superstitious. As the documents were distributed, Sarah watched the Alpha's reactions. Some read with growing concern, others with obvious skepticism. A few looked genuinely frightened. Then Alpha Graham stood and Sarah's stomach dropped. Alpha King, I have questions about this translation you're relying on so heavily. Ask them, who is this silver scribe? What are her credentials? How do we know she didn't simply mistranslate or misinterpret what she found? His eyes found Sarah in the wings, cold and calculating. How do we know you're not using some conveniently timed prophecy to consolidate more power? The accusation hung in the air like poison. Alexander's expression went deadly calm. Are you questioning my integrity? Alpha Graham? I'm questioning the foundation of your claims. You're asking us to believe that wolf civilization is ending based on the translation of one inexperienced wolf whose gifts only awakened recently. Graham's tone was carefully respectful, but his meaning was clear. Perhaps we should hear from this translator directly. Let her explain her methods. Answer our questions. Prove she knows what she's doing. It was a trap and everyone knew it. Graham wanted to discredit Sarah to make her look incompetent or manipulated, thereby discrediting everything Alexander was trying to warn them about, but it was also an opportunity. Before Alexander could respond, Sarah stepped out of the wings onto the platform. The murmurs grew louder. She felt hundreds of eyes on her, assessing, judging, dismissing, felt their skepticism like a physical weight. But she'd faced worse than skeptical alphas. She'd faced her rejected mate at his ceremony and survived. She could handle this. I'm Sarah Martinez, she said, her voice steady and clear. Former archivist of Crescent Moon Pack, recently awakened Silver Scribe. And the translator of the texts Alpha King Alexander is referencing. Former archivist Graham pounced on that. So you left Crescent Moon. Under what circumstances? Under the circumstances of being rejected by my true mate, and then invited to his mating ceremony as a form of public humiliation. Sarah met his eyes steadily. I chose to leave rather than remain in a pack that values political advancement over sacred bonds, which coincidentally is exactly the kind of behavior the texts warn leads to the culling. Gasps rippled through the hall. Several alphas looked uncomfortable. Mate rejection was shameful, but usually kept quiet. Sarah had just aired it in front of the entire territory leadership. Your personal drama isn't relevant, Graham began. It's entirely relevant, Sarah interrupted. Because mate rejection is one of the primary triggers for the culling. The texts are explicit about this. When wolves treat the moon goddess's gift as disposable, when they reject true mates for more suitable partners, when they prioritize bloodlines and politics over sacred bonds, that's when the balance breaks. That's when she wakes. She and Alpha in the back called out, "Who is she?" The first wolf, the mother of monsters, the source of all our magic. Sarah felt power rising in her as she spoke, her gift responding to her conviction. According to the texts, she was the first human to receive the transformation gift from the moon goddess. She became the mother of our entire species, and when we stray too far from our purpose, she judges us, strips away the gifts from those deemed unworthy, forces us back to our roots through pain and loss and death. The hall had gone completely silent. Even the skeptics were listening now, caught by something in Sarah's voice, truth perhaps, or power, or simply the weight of ancient knowledge finally spoken aloud. I know many of you think this is myth, Sarah continued. But I've read the warnings written by our ancestors. I've felt the weight of their fear and their desperate hope that future generations would be wiser. And I'm telling you, we haven't been. We've repeated their mistakes. And now we're going to pay the same price they did, unless we change. Change how? And Alpha asked, what are we supposed to do differently? Honor the mate bond above all else. Stop rejecting true mates for political gain. Return to the old ways of pack life. Not the surface traditions, but the deeper purpose of being guardians and protectors. Reconnect with the wild, with the moon goddess, with the covenant our ancestors made. Sarah's voice rang with conviction. And most importantly, acknowledge what we've become and commit to being better. That's a lot of demands based on one translation, Graham said coldly. How do we know you're even reading those texts correctly? Maybe your gift isn't fully developed. Maybe you're making mistakes. She's not, Alexander said, his voice cutting through the skepticism like a blade. I've had her work verified by every method available. The translation is accurate, and even if you don't believe in ancient prophecies, believe in the data, believe in the mate bonds dissolving across the territory, believe in the shift failures, believe in the evidence right in front of you. Or a new voice rang out, sharp and mocking, believe that you're using fear to control us. A woman stood in the back row, tall, elegant, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. Luna Thorne, Isa's mother. Luna Thorne. Alexander acknowledged coolly. You have something to add? I have a question about motives. She moved toward the center aisle, commanding attention. You bring this girl here, the same girl who caused a scene at my daughter's mating ceremony, who's clearly infatuated with power and status, and suddenly, she's translating ancient prophecies that conveniently require us all to defer to your authority. It's quite a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It's correlation, Sarah said before Alexander could respond. And I'm not infatuated with anything except staying alive. Luna Thorne. Your daughter mated my rejected mate. You were there when I was publicly humiliated. You know exactly what kind of treatment led me to leave. So don't stand there and pretend this is about manipulation when your pack was perfectly happy to abuse me until I became useful. Luna Thorne's expression tightened. How dare you? How dare I speak truth? Sarah felt her power rising, crackling in the air around her. The candles in the hall flickered. That's what silver scribes do, Luna. We speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. Even when powerful people don't want to hear it. Your pack rejected sacred bonds for political advancement. Mine did too. And now we're all going to suffer the consequences, unless we stop. The lights flickered more violently. Sarah felt her gift reaching out, touching the wolves in the hall, sensing their truths, their lies, their hidden fears. There are 17 wolves in this room who have rejected true mates, she said. The words coming from somewhere deep and ancient. 32 who've broken mate bonds for political reasons. 47 who've treated sacred gifts as transactions. You can deny the culling all you want, but you know what you've done. You know what we've all done, and deep down you're afraid because you know this is real. The silence was absolute. Sarah could feel them, their fear, their anger, their reluctant recognition that she was right. Then Alpha Stone stood again. Prove it. If you're really a silver scribe with all these gifts, prove you can read us. Tell us something you couldn't possibly know. It was dangerous, invasive, but Sierra felt the truth singing in her blood, demanding to be spoken. She looked at Alpha Stone and let her gift unfold. You rejected your true mate 20 years ago because she was human, married a wolf from a strong bloodline instead. You have 3 children who you love, but you dream about the human every night. Wonder what your life would have been like if you'd been brave enough to choose love over duty. And you're terrified that the culling will take everything from you as punishment for that cowardice. Alpha Stone staggered like she'd struck him. Several alphas near him looked shocked. How did you? He whispered. Because I can read truth, Sarah said quietly. Because I can sense what you hide from everyone else. And I'm telling you, the culling doesn't care about your reasons or your justifications. It only cares about your choices. And right now, we've all made choices that are bringing judgment down on our heads. She turned back to the full assembly. I don't want to see wolves die. I don't want to watch our civilization collapse. But it will if we don't change. The texts are clear. The signs are visible. The culling is coming. We can either prepare for it and try to survive with our honor intact, or we can deny it until it's too late. Your choice. Alexander moved beside her, his presence solid and supportive. The choice is yours, alphas. Believe the warnings and adjust your behavior. Or don't. But when mate bonds start breaking in your packs, when your wolves lose their shifts, when the magic you've taken for granted starts failing, remember this moment. Remember that you were warned, and remember that you chose to ignore it. He gestured to Marcus. You all have copies of the translation. Study them. Discuss them with your packs. And when you're ready to take this seriously, my door is open, but I won't waste time arguing with those who prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. This meeting is adjourned. The dismissal was abrupt and absolute. Alpha stood, some looking shaken, others angry. A few genuinely contemplative, but they were leaving, heading back to their packs, carrying Sarah's words and warnings with them. Whether they'd listen was another question entirely. As the hall emptied, Sarah felt her power drain away, leaving her exhausted and shaking. Alexander caught her elbow, steadying her. You were magnificent, he said quietly. Terrifying and brilliant and exactly what we needed. I think I just made a lot of enemies. You made them see truth. Some will hate you for it. Others will respect you, but all of them will remember. He guided her off the platform. Come on. You need rest and food and probably a strong drink. They were almost to the exit when a voice stopped them. Sarah. She turned to find Damien standing there looking uncomfortable and desperate. Behind him, keeping her distance, was Isla, her expression cold fury. What do you want, Damien? Sarah asked, too tired for games. I need to talk to you about what you said about rejected mates being targeted by the culling. He glanced at Alexander nervously, privately. No, Alexander said flatly. Please, Damon's voice cracked. Sarah, if what you said is true, if I'm going to be punished for rejecting you, is there a way to fix it? To make it right? Sarah stared at him, at this male, who'd rejected her publicly, who'd invited her to his mating ceremony to humiliate her, who'd only realized her value when someone else claimed her. You want to know if you can undo your rejection, make amends, and avoid consequences? She laughed bitterly. That's not how it works, Damien. The culling doesn't care about your last-minute regrets. It cares about your choices. You chose power over sacred bonds. You chose Issa over your true mate, and now you get to live with that choice. But I made a mistake. I see that now. You see it now because you're scared. Not because you actually understand what you did wrong. Sarah felt surprisingly calm. The calling is coming for wolves like you, Damien. Not because the moon goddess is cruel, but because you treated her gifts like garbage, and no amount of begging is going to change that. She turned away, done with him, done with his regret that came too late and meant too little. I'm sorry, Damon called after her. Sarah, I'm truly sorry for everything. She paused, looking back one last time. Believe you, but it doesn't matter anymore. Goodbye, Damien. I hope you survive what's coming. I really do. But whether you do or not isn't my problem anymore. Then she let Alexander guide her away, leaving her past behind once more, walking toward a future that was terrifying and uncertain, but entirely hers to shape. The culling was coming, but Sarah Martinez wasn't going to face it as a victim or a rejected mate. She was going to face it as a silver scribe who'd found her power, and that made all the difference. Chapter 10. The First Wave. The culling didn't wait for wolves to prepare. 3 days after the council meeting, reports began flooding in from across the territory. Not the scattered incidents that had been easy to dismiss. This was systematic, undeniable, and accelerating. The Silver Pine Pack reported 7 mate bonds dissolving overnight. Wolves who'd been perfectly bonded woke up feeling nothing. The connection severed as cleanly as if they'd been formally rejected. By midday, 2 of those wolves were dead, their bodies simply giving up without the bond to anchor them. The Riverbend pack lost their entire council of elders when 5 of them failed to shift during the full moon ceremony. They died in agony as their bodies tried and failed to complete the transformation. The Moonstone Pax Alpha contacted Alexander in a panic. Any teen. Half his warriors had lost the ability to sense pack bonds. They couldn't feel their connection to their packmates anymore. Couldn't find each other through the magical links that made coordinated defense possible. And those were just the first reports. Sarah sat in Alexander's war room, a space she'd never seen before, deep in the mountain, where strategy and crisis management happened, and watched him coordinate responses. Maps covered the walls, marked with red pins showing affected packs. Phones rang constantly. Messengers arrived and departed with updates. It was chaos, organized but overwhelming. Crescent Moon Pack is reporting incidents too, Helena said, reviewing the latest messages. Multiple bond dissolutions, 3 shift failures. Their healers are overwhelmed. Sarah felt a twist of concern. Despite everything, Maya was still there. Celeste, Elder Moira, wolves who'd been kind to her when most hadn't. What about casualties? She asked quietly. Helena consulted her notes. 2 deaths so far, both from bond dissolution, and they're requesting aid, medical supplies, energy workers, anyone who might be able to help stabilize the affected wolves. Send what they need, Alexander said without hesitation. Whatever our differences with Alpha Graham, his pack members don't deserve to die for his mistakes. He looked exhausted. Sarah knew he'd been working non-stop since the council meeting, trying to coordinate responses, trying to help packs prepare, trying to convince the skeptical alphas that this was real. Now, no one was skeptical anymore. We need more information, Marcus said from his position, surrounded by books and scrolls. The first text warned us this was coming, but it didn't tell us how to stop it or who will survive. We need to translate more texts, figure out if there's a pattern to who gets affected first, who survives, what we can do to protect ourselves. All eyes turned to Sarah. She felt the weight of their expectation, their hope, their desperate need for answers. I'll try, she said. But the first translation took everything I had. I don't know if I'm strong enough yet for another one. You have to be, Alexander said, flatly. Then his expression softened. I'm sorry, that's not fair, but Sarah, people are dying. More will die. If there's any chance those texts contain information that could save them, we need it now. He was right. She knew he was right. Give me an hour to prepare, she said. Cassandra, I'll need your help managing the energy flow. And Marcus, choose which text you think is most likely to contain survival information. They sprang into action, grateful to have something concrete to do. An hour later, Sarah sat in the secured library, with the second text open before her. Marcus had chosen carefully. This one was slightly larger than the first, and from what little context they could gather from marginal notes. It dealt with preservation of the worthy, exactly what they needed. Cassandra sat behind her, hands on Sarah's shoulders, feeding steady streams of energy into her channels to support the work. Remember, if it gets too painful, stop. We need you alive and functional, not burned out. I'll be careful. Sarah closed her eyes, found her anchor, the need to protect, to help, to use this gift for something meaningful, and let her power rise. The symbols began to glow. She opened her eyes and started translating. The culling is not mercy, but it is not random cruelty either. The mother judges with ancient laws, and those laws favor truth above all else. To survive her judgment, one must be true. Sarah's hand moved across the paper, transcribing as fast as she could read. True to one's mate, those who honor sacred bonds will find them strengthened, not severed. Those who have rejected true mates or chosen false bonds will lose everything. No exception, no mercy. True to one's pack, alphas who lead with wisdom and care will keep their connection to pack magic. Those who rule through fear or greed will find their authority stripped away. Betas and warriors who serve with honor will maintain their strength. Those who abuse power will lose it. True to one's nature, wolves who embrace their dual nature, who walk comfortably between human civilization and wild instinct, will survive. Those who have forgotten how to be truly wolf will lose the gift of transformation. Her head was starting to pound, but Sarah pushed through. This was too important. True to the covenant, above all, the mother judges based on whether we remember our sacred duty. We are not merely predators given human form. We are guardians, protectors. We exist to maintain balance between wild and civilized, to protect both human and wolf, to serve the moon goddess's greater purpose. Those who remember this will survive. Those who have forgotten will be called. Cassandra's energy surged into her, supporting her, as the translation grew more complex. There are signs to watch for to know if one is judged worthy. First, the mate bond will grow stronger, not weaker. Even those without mates will feel the moon goddess's presence more clearly. Second, shifts will become easier, more instinctual. The wolf and human will integrate more smoothly. Third, connection to pack magic will deepen. True pack members will feel their bonds intensify. Fourth, ancient gifts will awaken. Powers that have been dormant for generations will manifest in those deemed worthy to carry them. These signs mark the protected. If you experience them, you will survive the culling. If you do not, prepare your soul for judgment. Sarah's vision was blurring now, but she forced herself to continue. There was more. She could feel it. But know this, even the judged can be saved. Not through pleading or bargaining with the mother, but through genuine change. If a wolf who has rejected their mate finds them and makes true amends before the final judgment, the bond can be restored. If an alpha who has ruled poorly surrenders their position to one more worthy, they may find mercy. If a wolf who has forgotten their purpose remembers and dedicates themselves to the covenant, they may yet survive. Change must be genuine. Change must be deep. Change must come from the soul, not from fear of consequences. The mother knows the difference. She always knows. The glowing symbols were fading. Sarah pushed harder, desperate to capture every word. The calling will come in 3 waves. First, the warnings. Bonds breaking, shifts failing, magic weakening. This gives the guilty time to change, time to become worthy. It lasts until the new moon. Second, the escalation. The mother begins waking. Her power spreads across the land. Those still judged unworthy will lose more. Their wolves will begin dying inside them. They will feel the severing of everything that makes them more than human. This lasts until the full moon. Third, the final judgment. The mother wakes completely. All who are unworthy will lose their gifts entirely. They will become human, nothing more, and many will die from the shock of it. Their bodies unable to survive without the magic that sustained them. But those who are worthy will be transformed, stronger, more connected to the old magic, better than they were before. The culling is not meant to destroy us. It is meant to purify us, to burn away what is false and leave only what is true, to remind us what we are and what we're meant to be. If you survive, remember the lesson. Remember the covenant and make sure future generations never forget. So this horror never needs to happen again. The symbols went dark, the connection severed. Sarah collapsed forward, blood dripping from her nose, her head splitting with pain. She was vaguely aware of Cassandra catching her, of urgent voices calling for healers, of someone pressing something cool against her forehead. "Did I get it all?" she managed to ask through the haze of agony. "Did I finish?" "You got it," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "Every word, Sarah. You got it all." "Good," she whispered. Then darkness claimed her. She woke in the healing ward, Alexander sitting vigil beside her bed. "How long?" she asked, her throat raw. 8 hours. The healer said, "You pushed yourself to the absolute limit. Any further and you would have damaged your channels permanently." His expression was haunted. I shouldn't have asked you to do another translation so soon. You weren't ready. I was ready enough. Did you read it? Every word multiple times. He leaned forward. Sarah, what you translated. It's a survival guide. It tells us who will make it and who won't. It tells us there's still time to change, still time to save ourselves. That's exactly what we needed. Then it was worth it. Maybe, but I won't risk you like that again. We need you alive and whole, not used up and broken. His silver eyes were intense. From now on, you translate at your own pace. When you're ready, no pressure, no rushing. Even if it takes months, we might not have months. The text said 3 waves, warnings, escalation, final judgment. From the timeline it described, we have weeks, maybe a month if we're lucky. Then we'll work with what we have. He stood, pacing. I've already started distributing copies of both translations to every pack. Some are taking it seriously, making changes, trying to honor their bonds, reconnecting with the old ways. Others, he grimaced, others are still in denial or think they can bargain with the moon goddess or are so far gone that change is impossible for them. What about Crescent Moon? Alpha Graham is trying. He's ordered all wolves and forced matings to separate and seek their true mates if possible. He's trying to return to more traditional pack structures, whether it's enough or whether it's genuine. Alexander shrugged. That's for the mother to judge. A thought occurred to Sarah, cold and unsettling. The text said those who are judged unworthy will become fully human, lose their wolves entirely. Alexander, that's not just losing magic, that's losing part of their soul. The wolf it's integral to who we are. Even I know that, and mine was dormant most of my life. I know. His voice was heavy. I've been trying not to think about it. Thousands of wolves across the territory, maybe more, are going to lose everything that makes them who they are. They'll survive physically, but mentally, spiritually, they'll be destroyed. Can we save them? Is there really time for them to change genuinely enough? For some, maybe. For others, he met her eyes. The text was clear. The change has to be real, deep, soul level. You can't fake that kind of transformation, can't perform it out of fear. It has to come from genuine realization and commitment. So, we're just going to watch them die, watch them lose everything. We're going to give them every chance we can. But Sarah, some wolves are too far gone, too committed to power and politics and false bonds to change in time. We have to accept that and focus on saving the ones who can be saved. It was pragmatic, logical, and it made Sarah's heart ache. What about my old pack? She asked quietly. Damien, Isa, Alpha Graham. Do you think they can change in time? I don't know. Graham seems to be trying genuinely, Damien. Alexander's expression turned complicated. He's been calling constantly, asking to speak with you, begging for guidance on how to make amends for the rejection. I don't want to talk to him. I know. But Sarah, the text said, rejected mates can be saved if genuine amends are made. If Damien is sincere, if he's truly changed and not just scared, then maybe there's a chance for him. So, I'm supposed to forgive him, accept him back after everything. Anger flared hot in her chest. No, Alexander said firmly. The text said, amends must be made, not that you have to accept them. His survival is about his actions and genuine change, not about whether you forgive him. You don't owe him anything, Sarah. Not forgiveness, not your time, not anything. Some of the tension eased from her shoulders. Good, because I don't have anything to give him. That part of my life is over. Is it? Alexander studied her carefully. Because I've seen how you react when Crescent Moon is mentioned. You still care about some of the wolves there, Maya, Elder Moira, others who were kind to you. That's different. They didn't reject me, but they're still there still. Part of a pack that's suffering. Still at risk. He sat back down, his expression serious. I'm going to make you an offer, and I want you to think about it carefully before you answer. What kind of offer? Crescent Moon needs help. Real help. They need someone who understands the culling, who can read truth and guide them toward genuine change, someone who can identify which wolves are truly trying and which are just performing for survival. His eyes held hers. They need a silver scribe. They need you. Sarah's stomach dropped. You want me to go back there? I want you to have the choice. I can send you with full royal court authority, with guards and support as my official representative. You'd help them navigate this crisis, save the ones who can be saved, and maybe, he paused, maybe find some closure with the place that hurt you so badly. Or Sarah said slowly, I could stay here, keep translating texts, help you coordinate territory-wide responses. Let Crescent Moon handle their own problems. You could absolutely do that, and I wouldn't blame you. But Sarah, I've watched you these past weeks, watched you grow stronger and more confident, watched you claim your power. And I think part of you needs to go back there. Not as the rejected Omega, but as someone who survived and thrived despite them. Not for revenge, but for your own peace. He wasn't wrong. Part of her did want to return, want to show them what she'd become, want to prove that rejecting her had been their loss, not hers. But another part was terrified. Terrified of walking back into that place of pain. Terrified of facing Damien and his regret. Terrified of failing the wolves who'd been kind to her. I need to think about it, she said finally. Take your time, but not too much time. The culling won't wait. Alexander stood. Rest, recover, and when you've decided, let me know. Whatever you choose, I'll support it. He left. And Sarah lay alone with her thoughts and the weight of an impossible decision. Go back and face her past, or stay and build her future. Help the pack that had rejected her, or let them face the consequences of their own choices. Forgive or move on? Sarah closed her eyes, reaching for the quiet place inside her, where the silver scribe magic lived, where truth resided, even when it was uncomfortable. And deep in that quiet place, she already knew what her answer would be. She just needed to be brave enough to say it. If Sarah's journey from rejected mate to powerful silver scribe has kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe, because her hardest challenge yet, returning to the pack that rejected her to save them from the culling, is about to test everything she's become. You won't want to miss how this story ends. Chapter 11. Return to Crescent Moon. Sarah stood at the gates of Crescent Moon Pack, 3 days later, dressed in royal court formal attire. Deep blue robes embroidered with silver that marked her as an official representative of the Alpha King. Behind her stood 4 of Alexander's personal guard, and beside her was Cassandra, who'd insisted on coming to help manage the magical aspects of the crisis. It had been less than 2 months since she'd left this place. It felt like a lifetime. The gates opened and Maya came running out. Sarah, she threw herself at Sarah, hugging her fiercely. Oh my God, you came. I heard you might, but I didn't believe you actually came back. Sarah hugged her friend tightly, feeling tears prick her eyes. Couldn't let you face the culling without help. You look incredible, different, powerful. Maya pulled back, studying her. The royal court changed you. I changed me. Sarah corrected gently. The court just gave me space to do it. She gestured to her companions. This is Cassandra, energy worker from the Alpha King's personal staff. She's here to help stabilize affected wolves. And these are our guards. We're grateful you're here. Maya's expression turned serious. It's bad, Sarah. Really bad. 3 more deaths yesterday. Half the pack is terrified. And Damien, she hesitated. He's been desperate to talk to you. He's convinced that if he can just explain, if he can make you understand. I'm not here for Damien, Sarah said firmly. I'm here for the pack. For the wolves who don't deserve to die because of their leader mistakes. She straightened her shoulders. Take me to Alpha Graham. I need to establish protocols and get to work. Maya nodded, leading them through the gates into the pack grounds. Sarah knew so well. Everything looked the same. The training fields, the pack house, the library where she'd spent so many quiet hours. But Sarah was different now, and that made everything feel foreign. Wolves stopped to stare as she passed, some with recognition and shock, others with curiosity, a few with what looked like hope. "Is it true?" An older wolf called out. "Are you really a silver scribe? Can you help us?" "I'm going to try," Sarah said, her voice carrying, "but I can't save everyone. Only those who genuinely change, who truly honor the covenant, the rest." She let the implication hang. Alpha Graham waited in his office, looking like he'd aged 10 years and 2 months. His hair was grayer, his face lined with stress. Luna Thorne stood beside him, her usual icy composure cracked by obvious fear. "Sarah Martinez," Graham said, standing. "Thank you for coming. I know I don't deserve your help after how you were treated here, but your pack is suffering because you allowed sacred bonds to be treated as political tools," Sarah interrupted. "Because you let your beta publicly reject his true mate, because you prioritize bloodlines and power over the moon goddess's gifts." She met his eyes steadily. "I'm not here because you deserve help, Alpha Graham. I'm here because some members of your pack do. The ones who were kind when others were cruel. The ones who honored their bonds. The ones worth saving." Graham flinched but nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Complete authority to interview every member of the pack, access to all records of Ming's rejections and pack structure, and absolute honesty. No more politics, no more games. I'm going to ask hard questions and I need true answers. Can you give me that?" "Yes. Whatever you need." He looked desperate. "Can you tell me? Am I going to survive this? My mate bond with Luna is chosen, not fated." "Well, that I don't know," Sarah said honestly. "It depends on why you chose each other. If it was genuine love and partnership, you might be fine. If it was purely political," she shrugged. "The mother judges intent, not just actions. I can't tell you what she'll decide." Luna Thorne made a strangled sound. "This is insane. We're being judged by some ancient force based on arbitrary rules." "They're not arbitrary," Sarah said coldly. "They're about honoring sacred gifts, treating the mate bond with respect, remembering what we are and what we're meant to be. If that seems arbitrary to you, Luna Thorne, then you're exactly the kind of wolf the culling is meant to target." Silence fell like a hammer. "I'll set up in the library," Sarah said, breaking the tension. "Send wolves to me one at a time, starting with those showing symptoms. I'll assess each one, determine if they can be saved, and provide guidance. Cassandra will work with your healers to stabilize those who are salvageable. And I'll need to speak with your beta. Damien is. He's been struggling," Graham said carefully. "The guilt is eating him alive. He's barely sleeping, barely eating. All he talks about is making amends. Then he can tell me about it during his interview." Sarah's tone was flat along with everyone else. No special treatment, no exceptions. She turned and left before Graham could respond, Maya and Cassandra following. The library felt like coming home and walking through a graveyard simultaneously. Sarah's old desk was still there, covered in papers she'd left behind. The stacks she'd organized so carefully were exactly as she remembered. But she wasn't the wolf who'd worked here anymore. "Set up here," she told Cassandra, gesturing to a reading area. "You can use this space for energy work with the affected wolves. I'll do interviews at the main desk. How are you really feeling?" Cassandra asked quietly, watching Sarah's face. "Being back here, angry, sad, powerful." Sarah looked around the library. "This place made me small, kept me quiet and hidden. But I'm not small anymore and I'm not hiding." "No, you're definitely not." Cassandra squeezed her shoulder. "Let's save some lives." The first wolf sent to her was an Omega named Rebecca. Sarah recognized her. She'd worked in the pack house kitchens, had always been kind, always smiled. Now she looked terrified and exhausted. "Tell me your situation," Sarah said gently, gesturing for Rebecca to sit. "My mate bond started weakening 3 days ago," Rebecca said, her voice shaking. "I can barely feel Thomas anymore. And my wolf, she's getting quieter, like she's fading. The healers can't figure out why." "Am I going to die?" Sarah reached out with her gift, sensing the truth beneath Rebecca's fear. She felt the woman's mate bond faded but not broken, strained but not severed. Felt her genuine love for her mate. Felt her commitment to pack and purpose. Your bond is chosen, not faded, Sarah said, but it's genuine. You truly love your mate and he truly loves you. That's not what the culling is targeting. Then why is it weakening? Fear. The culling is creating an atmosphere of terror that's affecting even strong bonds. You need to reconnect with Thomas. Remember why you chose each other. Strengthen your foundation. Sarah pulled out a piece of paper, writing quickly. These are old bonding rituals. Perform them under the full moon. Recommit to each other consciously and intentionally. Your bond will stabilize. Rebecca took the paper with shaking hands. That's it. That's all I need to do. That's all. You're not being judged, Rebecca. You're just caught in the fallout. Go take care of your mate. You're going to be fine. The Omega left looking immeasurably relieved. The next wolf wasn't so lucky. His name was Trevor, a warrior who'd rejected his fated mate 5 years ago to mate with someone from a stronger bloodline. His chosen mate had already left him. Their false bond had dissolved overnight, and she'd fled the pack in terror. Sarah felt his truth immediately. Ambition, pride, a complete lack of genuine remorse. Ambition. He was scared of consequences, not sorry for his choices. You're not going to make it, she said bluntly. Trevor went pale. What? But I can change. I can find my fated mate. Apologize. Would you mean it? Or would you just be trying to save yourself? He opened his mouth, then closed it, unable to lie convincingly. That's what I thought. Sarah pulled out another paper. This one with different information. You're going to lose your wolf probably within the next 2 weeks. I'm sorry, but the change required to save you isn't something you're capable of. Not in time. Not genuinely. But I don't want to be human. Trevor's voice rose desperately. I don't want to lose my wolf. Then you should have thought about that before you threw away your sacred bond for status. Sarah's voice was hard. The mother doesn't accept last-minute conversions born of fear. She sees your heart, Trevor. And your heart hasn't actually changed. He stumbled out, looking destroyed. It was brutal work. Wolf after wolf came to her, and Sarah read their truths with her silver scribe gift. Some she could help. Their problems were about fear or misunderstanding. Their bonds genuine enough to survive. Others she had to condemn. Their choices too selfish. Their changes too shallow. Their time too short. By midday, she'd interviewed 30 wolves, saved 15, condemned 12, left 3 uncertain pending behavioral changes. She was exhausted and heartbroken and grimly determined. Then Damon walked in. He looked terrible, gaunt with shadows under his eyes, his usual confidence completely absent. He stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed to enter. Sarah, he said, his voice rough. Sit, she said, gesturing to the chair. You get the same treatment as everyone else. No special consideration. He sat, his hands trembling. I know I don't deserve your time. I know I don't deserve anything from you after what I did. But I need you to know. I'm sorry. Genuinely, deeply sorry. I was wrong about everything. Sarah reached out with her gift, reading his truth. Regret, deep, genuine regret. But underneath it, fear, desperation, the terror of consequences. You're sorry, she said slowly. But are you sorry because you understand what you did wrong? Or are you sorry because you're facing judgment? Both, he admitted. I'm terrified of losing my wolf, of becoming human. But Sarah, I swear it's not just that. Seeing you at the ceremony, seeing what you became, seeing how wrong I was about you, it changed something in me. I've been questioning everything. My choices, my values, what I really want from life, and I realized I threw away something precious, something I didn't appreciate until it was gone. So you want me back? Sarah asked flatly. No. Yes, I don't know. He ran his hands through his hair. I want to make amends. I want to fix what I broke. Even if it's not fixable, I want. He met her eyes and she saw genuine pain there. I want to be the mate I should have been from the start, Even if it's too late, even if you can never forgive me, I need to try. Sarah studied him, her gift diving deeper into his truth, reading the layers of motivation, the genuine change mixing with self-preservation, the complicated mess of a male who'd made terrible choices and was only now understanding the cost. You're not lying, she said finally. The regret is real. The change is beginning, but it's shallow still. You're not where you need to be. What do I need to do? Damien asked desperately. Tell me, and I'll do it. Anything. That's the problem. You're asking me to tell you how to save yourself. That's not how this works. The change has to come from inside. You have to figure out what being a good mate, a good wolf, a good guardian actually means, and then you have to become that. Not because you're afraid of consequences, but because it's who you genuinely want to be. I don't know how to do that. Then you probably won't make it. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. I'm sorry, Damien. I really am. But the culling doesn't grade on effort, it grades on truth. And the truth is, you're still too focused on saving yourself to genuinely transform. Damien slumped in his chair, looking defeated. Is there any guidance you can give me? Any chance? Sarah thought about the texts about what they'd said about rejected mates finding redemption. The only path I know requires you to find your true purpose. Not as my mate. That bond is broken and gone. But as a wolf, as a guardian, figure out what you're meant to protect, what you're meant to serve, what makes you more than just a predator with political ambitions. Find that. Commit to it completely, and maybe you'll survive. She stood, signaling the interview is over. But I can't find it for you. No one can. This is work you have to do alone. What about Isla? He asked quietly. What about the false bond I created? That's between you and her and the mother. I'm not here to referee your mating politics. Sarah moved toward the door. But Damien, for what it's worth, I hope you figure it out. I hope you survive. Not because I forgive you or want you back, but because I don't actually want to see you lose everything despite what you did to me. I don't wish that on anyone, Sarah. He stood, reaching toward her. She stepped back. Don't. We're done. This was your interview. You got your answers. Now leave so I can help the next wolf. He left, shoulders bowed, looking like a male carrying the weight of the world. Sarah sat back down at her desk, her hands shaking slightly. Cassandra appeared in the doorway. That looked hard. It was. Sarah took a deep breath, but necessary. He needed to hear the truth. And I needed to face him without falling apart. Did you fall apart? No. Sarah realized it was true. I felt sad for him, frustrated by his shallow understanding. But I didn't feel destroyed. Didn't feel like I needed him or wanted him back. Just closure. I guess that's growth. Cassandra smiled. The old Sarah would have crumbled. The new Sarah handled it like the powerful silver scribe she is. Sarah smiled back, feeling a spark of pride. Send in the next one. We've got a lot more wolves to save. By evening, Sarah had interviewed 73 pack members. The news was grim. Less than half would survive if they couldn't make genuine changes. And of those who could be saved, many would need significant help and guidance. She was summarizing her findings for Alpha Graham when Elder Moira shuffled into the office, her ancient eyes sharp despite her frail body. The silver scribe returns, Moira said, settling into a chair uninvited. I told you that you were meant for more than this pack. You did. Sarah felt warmth toward the old wolf. Thank you for the journal, for pushing me toward my awakening, for believing I was more than what everyone else saw. I didn't make you more. I just helped you see what was already there. Moira looked at Alpha Graham. How many will survive? Based on Sarah's assessments, maybe 40%. If they change genuinely and quickly, Graham looked devastated. More than half my pack is going to lose their wolves. Die or become human because of choices I allowed, choices I encouraged. Will you survive? Moira asked bluntly. Sarah had been avoiding that question. Now she turned her gift on Graham, reading his truth properly for the first time. She saw a male who genuinely loved his chosen mate, who'd built a life and family with her. But she also saw ambition, political calculation, a willingness to sacrifice others' happiness for pack strength, and underneath it all, doubt. Growing doubt about whether he'd made the right choices. Maybe, Sarah said honestly. Your bond with Luna is genuine enough that it might survive. But your leadership, Alpha Graham, you've prioritized power over purpose for decades. You've allowed sacred bonds to be treated as transactions. You've forgotten what it means to be a guardian. If you want to survive as Alpha, you need to remember fast. And if I can't, then you step down. Let someone who does remember take over. Save yourself by surrendering your position to someone more worthy. Graham looked at his Luna, who stared back with fear in her eyes. I'll think about it, he said finally. Don't think too long, Sarah warned. The new moon is in 5 days. That's when the first wave ends and the escalation begins. Anyone who hasn't changed by then probably won't change at all. She gathered her notes, suddenly desperate to leave this place to return to the royal court where she didn't have to face her past every moment. I'll be back tomorrow, she told Graham to continue interviews and provide guidance. But I need to report to the Alpha King tonight. Let him know how bad the situation is across the territory. Graham nodded numbly, looking like a male watching his world collapse. As Sarah left with Cassandra and the guards, Mia caught up to them in the hallway. Can I walk you out? Maya asked quietly. They walked together through the twilight. Past training fields where warriors practiced half-heartedly. Past the pack house where wolves huddled in frightened groups. Are you going to survive this? Sarah asked her friend. I think so. My mate bond is real. My wolf is strong, and I've always tried to be honorable. Maya smiled sadly. But watching my packmates face judgment, it's horrible, Sarah. Watching wolves I've known my whole life realize they're going to lose everything. I know, but this is necessary. This is the price of forgetting what we are. They reached the gates. Maya hugged her tightly. Thank you for coming back, for trying to save us, even after what this pack did to you. That's what real strength looks like. Sarah hugged her back. Take care of yourself and Maya. When the culling is over, when things stabilize, consider leaving this pack. You deserve better than Crescent Moon. Where would I go? The royal court is always looking for strong warriors with honor. Just a thought. Maya's eyes widened. Are you recruiting me? Maybe. We'll talk after we all survive. Sarah smiled. See you tomorrow. She left Crescent Moon behind once more, heading back toward the court, toward Alexander in the war room and the mounting crisis. Behind her, her old pack faced judgment. Ahead of her, worse was coming. The first wave was ending. The escalation was about to begin, and Sarah Martinez, the rejected mate turned silver scribe, was right in the center of it all, exactly where she needed to be. I'm always thinking of you. He said it simply, honestly. Your well-being, your growth, your happiness these past 6 months, watching you come into your full power, watching you build something meaningful. It's been the greatest privilege of my life. Sarah's breath caught. Alexander, I know what you're going to say. That I brought you here for pragmatic reasons. That our relationship started as necessity. And you're right. It did. But Sarah, it became something else. Something I didn't expect. Something I wasn't looking for but found anyway. He took her hands in his silver eyes, intense and vulnerable. You're not my fated mate. The moon goddess didn't bind us together. But maybe that makes this more meaningful. Because I'm choosing you every day. Not because destiny demands it, but because you're extraordinary and I want you in my life as my partner, my equal, my Alexander, Sarah interrupted gently, her heart racing. I'm choosing you too. I have been for months. I just didn't know if you felt the same way. How could I not? He laughed, the sound filled with relief and joy. You walked into my life as a broken, rejected Omega and became the most powerful, confident, incredible woman I've ever known. You saved thousands of lives. You changed the course of our entire civilization. And through it all, you stayed kind, stayed compassionate, stayed yourself. He cupped her face gently. I don't need the moon goddess to tell me you're meant to be mine. I can see it, feel it, know it in every part of me. We'll never have a mate bond, Sarah said, needing him to understand. Never have that divine connection. We'll have something better, something we build together. A bond of choice and trust and partnership that no one can sever because no one gave it to us. We made it ourselves. His thumb brushed her cheek. If you want it, if you want me, not as the Alpha King, but as Alexander, just me. Sarah thought about everything she'd been through. About Damien's rejection that had felt like the end of the world. About how that rejection had freed her to become something more. About how the worst moment of her life had led her here. To this man, to this moment. I want you, she said clearly. Not because you're powerful or because you gave me opportunities or because I owe you anything. I want you because you see me. Really see me. You've watched me transform and you respected every stage of it. You've given me space to be powerful without feeling threatened by it. He kissed her. It was gentle and fierce at once, full of months of restrained attraction, finally allowed to bloom. Sarah kissed him back, feeling something click into place. Not a mate bond, something different, something chosen, something that felt right in a way that had nothing to do with divine intervention and everything to do with two people who genuinely wanted to build something together. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Alexander smiled. I've wanted to do that for months. Why didn't you? Because you needed time to be sure I wasn't just another male trying to control you. To be sure this was what you wanted, not what you thought you owed me. To be completely free to choose. His expression turned serious. And Sarah, you are free. This changes nothing if you don't want it to. You're still the silver scribe, still my equal, still building your own legacy. I'm not asking you to be my Luna or to give up anything. I'm just asking if maybe alongside all that, there could be room for us. There's room, Sarah said, pulling him closer. There's always been room. I was just too scared to admit it, too worried about being rejected again. You're not going to be rejected. Not by me, not ever. He kissed her forehead gently. I'm not perfect, Sarah. I'm political and calculating. And I make decisions that not everyone agrees with. But with you, I want to be better. Want to be the male you deserve, the partner you can count on. Then be that, Sarah said simply. And let me be the same for you. Partners equals building something together. Deal. He grinned, looking younger and happier than she'd ever seen him. Now, should we tell the court or let them figure it out? Mai already knows. Apparently, the whole court has been watching us dance around this for months. Of course, they have. Nothing stays secret here. He laughed, pulling her toward the door. Come on. Let's go make it official. And then tomorrow we'll go see those twins, visit the old temple, and start planning our future, both the territories and ours. They walked through the corridors together, hand in hand, and Sarah marveled at how much her life had changed. 6 months ago, she'd been standing at the gates of Crescent Moonpack, about to attend her rejected mate ceremony, convinced her life was over. Now she was the most powerful silver scribe in 2 centuries, a woman who'd helped save her species, someone who'd turned rejection into transformation, and pain into purpose. And she was walking hand in hand with a male who chose her, not because fate demanded it, but because he wanted to, because she was worth choosing. As they entered the main hall where the court was gathered for the evening meal, conversation stopped. Heads turned, eyes widened as they saw Sarah and Alexander's joined hands. Well, Cassandra called out, grinning widely. It's about damn time. Laughter erupted. Someone started clapping. Soon, the entire hall was applauding, celebrating not just their relationship, but everything they represented. Survival, transformation, hope for the future. Alexander raised Sarah's hand, kissing it gently, and addressed his court. I have an announcement. Sarah Martinez has agreed to be my partner, not my Luna. She's far too important as the silver scribe to be reduced to a title. But my partner in every way that matters, my equal, my chosen mate, more applause, more celebration. Sarah felt tears in her eyes, but they were happy tears, grateful tears. She'd come here broken and rejected, convinced she was worthless. She was leaving as someone powerful, chosen, and absolutely certain of her value. "Thank you," she whispered to Alexander as the celebration continued around them. "For what? For seeing me? For giving me space to become myself. For choosing me even when you didn't have to. Thank you for being worth choosing." He pulled her close, and for choosing me back. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by celebrating wolves, and Sarah finally understood what her mother had meant in that journal entry so long ago. What was meant to destroy you may actually be the key to your true power. Damien's rejection had destroyed who she was, but it had freed her to become who she was always meant to be. And that woman, she was extraordinary. 1 year later, Sarah stood in the restored temple of the first silver scribes. The building was ancient stone and glass, perched on a mountainside that overlooked 3 territories. Inside, 20 young wolves sat in a circle, learning to read the old language, learning to sense truth, learning to be guardians of knowledge and wisdom. The first class of silver scribes to be trained in over 2 centuries. Remember, Sarah told them, her voice carrying the authority of experience and power. Your gift is not just about reading old texts or sensing lies. It's about serving truth, about helping our people remember what they are, about making sure the culling never needs to happen again. The young wolves nodded, their expression serious, understanding the weight of what they were learning. But it's also about choice, Sarah continued. About using your power to help others find their own strength. The greatest gift you can give another wolf is not solving their problems for them, but showing them they have the strength to solve those problems themselves. One of the young wolves, a girl of 17 who reminded Sarah painfully of herself at that age, raised her hand. "Master Sarah, is it true you were rejected by your fated mate and that's what awakened your gifts?" "It's true. Do you regret it?" Wish things had been different. Sarah thought about it. About Damien, who'd sent her a letter 6 months ago saying he'd found his true purpose as a teacher, helping young wolves understand the importance of honoring sacred bonds. About Isla, who'd left the wolf world entirely, choosing to live as a human among humans. About Crescent Moonpack slowly rebuilding under new leadership. "No," she said honestly. "I don't regret it because that rejection freed me to become this, to find my real purpose, to choose my own path instead of accepting the one others carved for me." She smiled at the young wolf. "Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing in disguise. You just can't see it at the time." The lesson ended, and Sarah dismissed her students. She stood at the temple's window, looking out at the vast landscape below, feeling at peace. "There you are," Alexander said, entering the temple. He'd been in meetings all day with the council, but he always made time to find her. "How are the students?" "Brilliant. All of them. They're going to change our world. They're going to change it because you're teaching them." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and Sarah leaned into his warmth. "I have news. The Eastern Territory Alpha wants to establish a Silver Scribe program. They're asking if you'd consider training their candidates. The program is spreading. The knowledge is spreading. We're actually doing it. Making sure our people remember you're doing it," Alexander corrected. "I'm just making sure you have the resources and authority to succeed." He turned, her to face him. "I'm proud of you. Endlessly proud. You've built something that will outlast both of us. A legacy of wisdom and truth." "We built it," Sarah corrected. Together, he agreed, kissing her softly. "As partners, as we'll always be." They stood in the temple as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and red around them. The ancient stones hummed with power, with purpose, with the accumulated wisdom of generations of silver scribes. And Sarah Martinez, once rejected, once broken, once convinced she didn't matter, felt complete. She'd found her power, her purpose, her place. She'd taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into something beautiful. She'd proven that rejection didn't define her, that worthlessness was a lie, that she'd always been extraordinary. She just needed the courage to believe it. The beta had invited his rejected mate to his mating ceremony to mock her. But she'd come with the alpha king, and more importantly, she'd left as herself, powerful, chosen, and absolutely certain that being rejected had been the greatest gift Damien could have given her, because it freed her to become exactly who she was always meant to be. If Sarah's transformation from rejected Omega to legendary Silver Scribe inspired you, if her journey from heartbreak to power reminded you that our worst moments can become our greatest turning points, make sure you're subscribed, because stories like hers, stories where the underdog doesn't just survive but thrive spectacularly, are what we're all about. Hit that subscribe button and join the thousands who believe that rejection is just redirection towards something better. Sarah's story is complete, but there are so many more stories of transformation, vindication, and triumph waiting to be told. Don't miss them.